shit, man. Yeah, do you know what? I've decided that this game is not good jobs on the rep, 80 reps. Vessel Lord with a 0. It's not an O, it's a 0. Turn 17, happy birthday, Twisted. Thank you, Textures, appreciate it. Do you know who was the first one to get 80? I was
Hello, everybody. Hello, hello. Beg your pardon. Hope you're all having a good evening. Everything should be functioning now properly. At least I hope so. Yep. According to my screen, everything is working fine. Awesome. Hello, hello. Well, right now it looks like we have about 22 viewers. That's more than I expected. We'll see how long that lasts. Nope, it went to 18. Cool. Anyway, good evening, Rudigar. Good evening, Dylan, Tech, Senate, Cuban, all of y'all. Good to have y'all. Hannah, I think I saw you in there earlier. All right. Let's go ahead and in the poll. Let's see who won. So out of 12 votes, only 12? Okay. Out of 12 votes, Tempest Blade and Shogun of Crime were tied for 33%, Monster Club at 25%, and Tale of Tomaki at 8%. Poor Tale of Tomaki, right? Poor Tale of Tomaki. Oh, well, that is fine. That is fine. Hello, Spirit. Well, welcome, everybody, to the Raven's Roost. This is where I like to be on Monday nights. Tonight we're going to be doing some story reading. I don't play any games tonight. I don't do any For Honor or gaming or history work. I just talk with you guys and read stories. It's going to be a good night because I like to just chill out on these nights and read stories with you guys. For those who are new to the channel, welcome. I apologize, though, because we're continuing all 4 stories tonight. No new stories tonight. It's 4 that we've been working on for the past few weeks. Tempest Blade, Shogun of Crime, Monster Club, and The Tale of Tomaki. All stories that I have written, all stories that I'm very excited to be continuing with you guys tonight. If you feel lost at any point, go back and watch previous entries, and you should be all caught up with the stories. All right. So, let's get started. Tonight we're going to start with The Tempest Blade. We're going to pick up there. And I believe we left off on Chapter 6 of The Tempest Blade, written on November 15th, 2017. This was an older one, but one that I'm very excited to continue. So let's not waste any time and get right into it. Okay? Okay. So, Tempest Blade, Chapter 6, published November 15th, 2017. Let's begin. I sat in the forest clearing, a fire at my feet and a dead beast by my body. I had slayed it only an hour ago, and already it was starting to stink. It was a bizarre creature, to be sure. Antlers like a deer, but the face of a twisted demon. A huge bear-like body and fangs like a wildcat. It had a long tail like a crocodile that it had used to knock down a tree, and its massive arms were thicker than my own body. Truly, this fiend was a massive animal that had needed to be slain. Under usual circumstances, such a kill would have pleased me, but I could only feel sadness right now. Andrea, a close friend of mine, would never return to the town because she'd been chased out and there was nothing I could do about it. I wanted to go to her home and plead with her, but I knew that doing this would only upset her further. And then there was the Lothari girl, Anya. Such a sweet child, innocent and naive. Did she herself realize just how close to danger she now was? I delivered her to the lion's den, and the only reason she lived was because the lions didn't know she had arrived. What was I to do? Gaius was right that keeping her there was dangerous, probably too dangerous. And if Andrea's fate was any indication, if that child was discovered, it would spell disaster for Gaius and Rox. I knew there was only one thing to do now, and I truly hated the idea. But it needed to be done. This clearing I sat in was not one I found randomly. It was a meeting place. A place where a certain friend could find me, and in a few moments that friend would arrive. I could only sit and wait and poke at the memories in the dancing flames. The flames. The burning embers of war. As memories began flaring to life once more, I almost forgot the purpose I had for being here, or whom I had contacted. A simple lapse in judgment. A moment of distraction was all it took. I felt him. He was upon me in an instant. From beyond the bushes, a being sprang out, gun drawn and aimed at my head. My sword was out and ready. In a fraction of a second, my steel met his iron, brushing it to the side. His other hand was already going for a second pistol. I dove into the gun's barrel and used my head to strike his elbow, hopefully to dislodge the gun from his arm. It didn't. Instead, the assailant threw himself into a back handspring, leaping away from me a short distance and raising his guns once more. Damn, the figure growled. I thought I had you. Almost did, I admitted. You caught me while my mind was elsewhere. The legendary Tempest, letting down his guard. My, how you've changed since we last met. The figure grinned, lowering his guns. But it's good to see you. You seem to be in good health, Hawk. Same to you, Maverus. The man, Maverus, stepped into the light, and his sharp, angular face could be seen. His long hair tied back in a ponytail. He wore a long coat which, if opened fully, one could see no less than 10 pistols strapped to the interior, as well as 2 strapped to each leg, 2 on his hip, and 2 strapped to his chest, not to mention the 2 that never left his hands. He was Pac Maverus, the most deadly gunslinger in the Silver Corps. He earned a reputation for carrying 18 guns, each one marked with a different Lothari rune that gave it a different elemental effect when fired. Yes, Pac Maverus was a Lothari. His long, pointed ears were unhidden as he approached me and shook my hand. Though he was a Lothari by race, he was considered a traitor to his own kind. He embraced the use of firearms and integrated the Lothari magical runes with them. A highly offensive and sacrilegious act to the Lothari. Pac Maverus had never truly understood the strict cultural stagnation nature of the Lothari people, which is why he left to study under humans and learn their ways. While he certainly wasn't the only Lothari to choose this lifestyle, it won him no friends from his own kind, or, needless to say, that many from humans. However, he had been as close as a brother to me during the war, and now I needed his help. It's been a long time since I've seen smoke rise from this place, Hawk. Our favorite meeting ground, right? It was necessary, Pac. I'm afraid I have a problem, I explained. I need you to look into something for me. What's the issue? He asked curiously. I inhaled a moment and hesitated. I'd become so used to hiding her identity. I almost forgot that Pac was trustworthy. After remembering this, I continued. A few days ago, I found a sick Lothari girl in the forest. Her mother was killed by the Serendinen, and she'd been on her own ever since. Pac's face darkened and he spat on the ground. I wish I could say I was shocked by that, but unfortunately, word of the Serendinen executing possible human sympathizers has been growing a great deal recently, Pac explained. I need to know if she has any family, Pac. Anyone I can take her to. The longer I protect her, the more likely Gaius and his family are put in danger for sheltering us. Gaius? How is that old fox? Pac laughed. Still growling like a bear and swinging twice as hard. I chuckled. That old fart. Damn, that brings back memories. Remember the Battle of Yellmarsh? Gaius had to treat both of us for leeches when we had to swim through that thick river. If I'll recall correctly, Pac, I suggested we go around it, but you said there was no danger to just swimming through. Okay, so I made a mistake. Sue me. There are people in town who do worse than that. And for far lesser reason. I sighed. And that's why I want your help. Back on topic, Pac. Despite how the Serendinen hate you, there are still connections you have in Lothari villages, right? I want you to find out where I can take this girl. What's her name? Anya, I answered. I don't know her last name. Well, what's she look like? Small, delicate, black hair like silk, blue eyes and pale skin. That doesn't really narrow it down all that much, Hawk, but, I'll do my best. When I learn something, I'll set up a smoke signal here again. Same place, Pac agreed. Thank you, friend. I'm surprised you still live in your hometown, considering how they hate you, Pac muttered, crossing his arms. You could just take the girl and find a house in the mountains to stay in. It's too excluded. Plus, I couldn't afford such a place, I admitted. Don't worry about me. I don't care what they say. You should care, Ethan, Pac snapped. You did what you needed to do. You didn't betray the Empire. If anything, you're the hero of the Empire. You don't deserve to be treated like a criminal. My heroism was paid for by the blood of other Silver Corps warriors, I snapped back, causing Pac to fall silent. What I did was not heroic. It was just a thing that had to be done. You can't beat yourself up over this, Hawk. It's just not worth it. Maybe not. I put my sword away, realizing I still had it out from our little skirmish, and I smiled. How long do you think it'll take you to get info? No more than a week. Might not even take that long. I'll see you soon, Ethan Hawke, the Tempest. Before I could ask him not to call me that, he turned and sprinted into the forest, laughing the whole way. He was always a happy person, so excitable. Even during the war, he seemed so carefree. Perhaps it was his way to evade the fact that he had no home, no family to receive him. Having turned his back on his own kind and being loathed by everyone else for what he is truly a lost warrior. But then again, so was I. I turned again and began to walk out of the clearing and back into the woods. I had one more day of patrolling. Then I could go home and check on Anya. The Tempest. It was a name that I had earned in the Battle of Iratos. That day, with the wind blowing so gently that it felt like fingers stroking my skin, I saw lines of Lothari warriors, lances and shields in hand, rushing towards our battle lines. Iratos was a giant sinkhole. The Imperial forces stood on one side of the hole and the Lothari forces on the other. The battle plan was simple. We would let the Lothari forces all pile into that hole at once and then rain Gatling gun fire on them from above. The problem was that Lothari had anticipated such a strategy. While their main forces took to the hole and began firing arrows marked with water runes upon our heads. The arrows exploded into rainwater, ruining our powder reserves. We were forced to engage to buy time. Of course, the Silver Corps were first to attack. The first to charge in was Malden, a young man with incredible skill with a rifle, but he was quickly outnumbered. Not only this, but he had moved down the hill too slowly. The cold wind that blows downward into the ravine was a force that kept one from maintaining their footing. With each attempt to maintain altitude and distance, he slipped further and further down into the death trap. The Lothari were swift and easily surrounded the poor fool, and he was overtaken, impaled from 5 sides by their lances. He was butchered before my eyes, and I was to enter next. Sword in hand, I charged into the sinkhole, prepared to quick draw the blade. As I ran, the breeze that had blown so gently began to gain power. The sinkhole, as it turned out, was actually a wind tunnel, allowing wind to rush through. It was a canyon of wind. The Lothari began to close in on me, and in the last moment, I drew my blade at staggering speed. The wind blew the Lothari forward and towards my sword. Those 3 closest were gutted by it. Feeling the wind lead me, I began cutting through them, one after another. They fell by the tempered steel. With the speed of the wind and its untouchable fluidness, I almost walked through the Lothari soldiers. The wind that followed me led me further and pushed me into their battle lines. Wielding my sword, letting the wind guide me to one soldier after another, but I never moved in too deep that I was ever overwhelmed. It was an intricate dance to maintain a foothold in the treacherous ravine, while also not sacrificing ground to the enemy. And finally, after almost 30 minutes of the furious clashing of swords and the sound of battle cries and roaring gunshots, at last, the Lothari warriors lay dead beneath me. Though it had not been only my power that had won the fight, those Lothari that saw me standing there amongst their fallen comrades believed it had been me, flying through like a furious tempest and laying waste to their warriors. Thus I earned the name Tempest for this deed. I didn't want it, and anyone who honored me with that title, I would attempt to correct them with the truth, but this ordeal taught me an important lesson about war and history itself. The truth is a commodity in war, often traded for reputation and rapport. Tales of battles and heroes go down in history to inspire and to invigorate the citizens, when the real truth of what happened is lost to history. It was this lesson on war, this undeniable truth, that caused me to become the infamous traitor that most of the Empire saw me for. I shook these distant feelings and insecurities off my shoulders. To dwell on them was irrelevant. To regret them was non-productive. I had done what I felt was right, and that was the end of it. Regardless of the orders I had been given, I did what I needed to. Besides, I had far more pressing matters to concern myself with at this point. I took my leave and walked to the eastern portion of the forest to search for danger. But Blade slept within its sheath, waiting again to be set free. But my hand calmed it. I stroked the gentle handle of the sword. I was not a soldier who blindly followed orders. I was a warrior, and only I commanded my sword. And that was Chapter 6. Now, as usual, I ask you guys to let me know what you think, and while y'all let me know, I will once again share the awesome image that Jay drew for that chapter, because he tried to draw a chapter for each, he tried to draw a picture for each chapter that I wrote. Let me see if I can't find this one. Yep, this is it. It's a mighty big image, so I will shrink it down. But in this image, he wanted to draw the flashback where he earned his nickname in the Battle of Eratos. So I'll give you a second to look at that while I get a drink. Will I provide more from Jay tonight? Yep. Got another image all set up. All right. Well, since you've now seen it, I'll take it down. And I'll go ahead and put up the picture for the next chapter, because he did draw a picture for this next chapter coming up. This is the picture for Chapter 7. Again, super big. I will decrease the size. There we go. That should do it. Alright, while y'all look that over, I will jump to Chapter 7. Alright. I'll leave that up while we read. Ready? This is Tempest Blade, Chapter 7, written February 4th, 2018. The sun was beginning to set, and I was exhausted. I wandered back into town, my legs heavy and partly dragging on the dirt path. I lightly touched the hilt of my sword, helping to hold it up as I felt like it might fall to the ground if I stumbled. And I wanted to stumble to the ground more than anything. I'd been in the woods hunting and clearing the area for hours, but it felt like it had been days. My mind kept returning to Anya and her little smiling face. She'd changed me. Was it for good or bad? I couldn't be sure, but I had been changed nonetheless. Anya invaded my thoughts and my emotions like an infection, but not once but not one I necessarily wanted to cure myself of. In fact, I found myself leaning on it, a reminder of sorts, a reminder of my own convictions. And yet, there was no denying that Anya was still dangerous. The fact I was keeping her hidden away was itself a threat to my very life. Inadvertently, I'd put a death curse upon the inn that had kindly taken me in. Anya was a Lothari child, making her an enemy to all who considered themselves loyal Imperials. But she wasn't necessarily safe among her own kind either. The Sarendainen had slaughtered her mother, and likely her father. Where could she turn when she was hated by everyone? For no reason than for just existing. What crime could such a small child be guilty of that turns the world against them? And then it is now, as I ponder these questions, that I fully realize why I dwell on the child so. She's just like I am. She and I are alike in that regard, if nothing else. I feel bound to this girl, for better or worse, so I will do all I can to ensure she survives. If she were to die, then it would be like watching myself die as well. I finally made it to the inn. As I reached for the door, I felt something strange wash over me. A dread. A cold fear. I shoved open the wooden door and looked around. Bar patrons were all there, as usual, drinking and enjoying their meals. But the moment Rock stepped out and saw me, her frown deepened on her face. She ran out from behind the counter and grabbed my arm. "Ethan," she hissed. "What's wrong?" I asked. "It's Anya." My blood ran cold and I felt my whole body run rigid. "Where is she?" "I don't know. She asked if she could run out to get some eggs for the store, and she wanted to be helpful. We didn't think it was a bad idea. We didn't want her to be cooped up, so we made her wear a hood to hide her ears and we let her go. But that was 6 hours ago, and it's getting late." "Which side of town?" "We don't know, Ethan. What if she's been discovered?" Rox cried. "That's exactly what I'm afraid of. Search the lower side of town. I'll head for the market district." I turned on my heel, refinding the energy I'd lost, and hurried back to the door to run back into town. "Ethan, if she's been found..." "She hasn't. If she was found and discovered for what she was, then we'd already have a mob in the area ready to hang her. Just find her before that happens." "Ethan, I'm so sorry. I didn't mean for..." "It's not your fault," I responded, probably more fiercely than I intended. You weren't prepared for this, and you're only trying to let her stretch her legs. It's fine. We'll find her." I didn't wait for a response before I rushed out into the night to find Anya. But Rox's words rung in my head like a metronome. It was true. It wasn't Rox's fault or Gaius's. It was mine. Me, the one who brought her into this town in the first place. The one who forced her upon Gaius and Rox without asking. The one who stupidly left her alone with them, without any inkling of a thought to the notion that she might want to walk around and get some fresh air. How foolish could I be? If she was found out, it was on me. Without a moment's hesitation, I sprinted into the market. The market was slowing down as the sun began to set. Fireflies took flight and began to ignite the evening with their dancing and glimmering bodies. The lanterns were being lit, and soon shoppers would head home along with the store owners. I, however, was not leaving. I had to find Anya. I searched and skimmed every empty shop and every alley, but no one had seen her. I would ask around, but then they'd want to know how to recognize her, and that was something I couldn't tell them. It was best to search alone. I moved in and out of empty shops, scanning and even sniffing at times as if behaving like a hound dog would somehow make me one. I couldn't stand the dimming sunlight, as it felt like the trickle of sand through an impatient hourglass, hearkening to the doom of a child I had, for better or worse, taken responsibility for. I began to fear the worst, and as the sun finally set and the darkness came upon us, I knew that finding her would be incredibly more difficult. I couldn't give up, though. There had to be some clue to where she'd gone. Something I'd missed. "Anya, where the hell are you?" I hissed into the night. "Where would you go?" Then suddenly a thought occurred to me. I had a hunch, and it was a long shot, but I felt it was my best guess as to where she was. I took off into the alley behind the fish market stall. I had to get to the other side of the market fast and pray she was still there. The market was always filled with children waiting on their parents to get done with work. If she'd bumped into them and they'd invited her to play with them, would she have said no? Would she have followed them? Anya was a cautious but curious child, after all. There was one place in the market district that might be a place for a child to hide. There was a toy store nestled in the corner of the market where little kids would frequent to look into the windows at the toys. I finally caught sight of it, but to my dismay, there was nowhere to be seen. Beginning to lose hope, I leaned against the window of the store and groaned, helplessly praying for a sign. I glanced down at my feet and saw the footprints of children as they had crammed against each other to peer into the windows. How they must have laughed and danced happily at the thought of the goods inside. I sighed and stepped back, only to notice something was off. Behind the toy store was a mound of earth and debris. It had once been the beginnings of a makeshift wall to prevent Lothari invasion from the east. The wall construction had ceased when the Empire announced an end to the war, but the mounds of earth and materials had never been moved. It served as a reminder to the people and to myself that though we were through with the war, we were not at peace. There was something strange about the mound, though. It looked disturbed. Grass had begun to grow along its edges in the past few years, but it looked as if some had fallen away, like the mound had been walked on repeatedly. Curiosity took me once more, and I ran to investigate. As I drew closer, I heard laughing and shouting, the sound of young boys. Rocks were cracking on rock, and I heard across the edges of the mounds of dirt and grass, only to find 4 young boys standing there at the base of the hills, tossing rocks up at one further away, shouting and jeering at it. "What, you scared?" one shouted. "Yeah, you like hiding like a fraidy cat." The taller boy took his rock and threw it further than the other so it landed beyond the mound. "Come out already," he shouted. "What's going on here?" I snapped, walking towards them. "Why are you throwing those rocks?" The boys stopped and turned to face me. They looked surprised at first. They appeared to look guilty, but then their faces twisted into sneers as they caught a better look at me. "What's it matter to you?" one asked. "Traitor!" "Who are you shouting at?" I asked again. "We were just playing with her," the tall one smirked. "Yeah, it's not our fault that she's no good at hide and seek." I felt my fists clench as I began to piece together what was going on. "She was already hiding her face with that dumb hood. All we wanted to do was see what she looked like. She's just a weirdo." "You boys go home. Right now," I snapped, marching past them and towards the mound they were throwing rocks at. They glared at me, and one even threw a rock at my feet, grunting angrily. "Bastard!" the tall one shouted. "You're a no-good traitor!" I stopped in my tracks. I didn't turn to face them, but I listened. "My dad told me about you and what you did. You were one of the best, right? A Silver Corps warrior. And then you just went nuts and killed 4 other Silver Corps warriors in cold blood. You're a filthy traitor. You don't deserve to live." I listened to him, and then paused. "You know nothing," I hissed. "Well, prove me wrong," the boy marked. Though he was young, he spoke like the adults in town did, with the same arrogance and disgust. "It wasn't 4 Silver Corps soldiers I killed," I answered. "I killed 5 of them." I snarled back, slowly reaching for my sword. "That's right. I cut all 5 down in just 15 minutes. 3 minutes each. So cutting down 4 nosy little brats like you won't take nearly that long, will it?" The boy suddenly went pale as sheets of paper and backed away fast. "You're a murderer! You stay away! You and that girl!" The 4 took off running away, leaving me smirking and putting my sword away again. I then ran towards the mound and stopped at the base. Up near the top of the mound was a small opening where debris had been cleared away, and I could sense movement inside. "Anya," I called out. "It's all right. Those boys are gone." There was a pause and the slightest of rustles. Then out of the hole crawled the little girl. Though she had her hood pulled over her head, I could tell it was her from the way she moved. She stepped closer and stopped partway down the tall hill of earth, staring at me for a moment behind her hood, and then looked down sadly. "I'm sorry," she whispered. "Don't be. Those boys were jerks, and Anya was bad," she whimpered, her body shaking. Anya, what are you talking about? I asked. I realized she probably couldn't understand all I was saying, but I had all but put aside the language difference. Anya suddenly shivered like a leaf and began speaking in my language, broken up and meek. Anya sees store giving out sweets. Anya asked for some, and store man, he nice and give, but mean boys say they want. Anya not give, they... So hit Anya hard. She pointed to the top of her head, where I could see a small stain where blood probably had been. Anya scared and run, but Anya got lost. And Anya was scared. Anya did wrong. Anya ran. You were trying to stay safe. That's not wrong. Ethan tell Anya to stay home, and Anya run away. Now Ethan angry with Anya. I'm not angry, I replied quickly, stepping closer. Anya not want to be alone anymore, she cried finally, looking up, tears rolling down her cheeks. Anya alone when Mom die. Anya never want be alone again. Please, Ethan, let Anya stay with Ethan. Anya want to stay. She finally broke down and began crying into her fists as she rubbed her eyes, wailing and bawling horribly. It seemed like she'd been holding in these feelings for a while. These tears. And I also realized something else from her story. This girl knew more of the Imperial language than she'd let on previously. Though definitely broken and not fluent, she had a basic understanding. Either she was incredibly fast at learning the language, or she had some dealings in the past. But neither of those things will weigh upon my heart now. In fact, it was those tears that she cried that weighed down on me now. I knelt down on her next to her and reached out. Come here, I ordered. She didn't hesitate, but instead ran and threw herself into me, hugging me as tightly as she could, as if I might just vanish if she didn't hold me to this one spot. I wrapped my arms around her and allowed her hood to fall off so I could stroke her hair. She cried into my chest and I sighed. I'm not angry. It's not your fault. She didn't answer, but only cried. How frightened she must have been. How scared. How weak. She'd lost her mother in the forest, and God knows how long she lived alone in those monster-infested woods. I stroked her hair and sighed, letting her tear-soaked face bury itself into my chest. Anya's sorry, she cried. Anya, stay? Of course you can stay, I whispered back. She didn't respond and just sobbed. I felt the blood in her hair between my fingers, and I felt tears build in my own eyes as I tightened my hold on her body. I inhaled deeply and I bit my lip, only now realizing just how cold her tiny body was. It was so late and she was exhausted. I'm taking you home, I whispered. All right, she whispered. I smiled despite myself. I loved hearing her say that word. The word I'd taught her. Yeah, it's going to be all right, I nodded. I won't let you go, I promise. She probably didn't catch all that, but she seemed to have calmed down a good deal as her body, though still shaking, was no longer sobbing. I stood and took her hand, pulling her hood back over her head. I'll take care of it. As we began our walk back home, my thoughts turned to earlier, when I blamed myself for taking her in. Anya was a burden. She risked our lives by being amongst us, and I had no right to put that kind of danger on Rox and Gaius. I had no right to pull strings to find out who she was. I've been selfish. But seeing her tearful face, knowing what she'd suffered, I began to realize that I had no choice in this matter either. I had to find a home for this girl. She didn't deserve this torture. She didn't deserve the life I'd give her, of pain and discrimination from everyone around her. I was no father, but until I could find someone for her, I'd have to do all I could. I'll find your home soon. I swear it. And that was chapter 7. All right. Let me know what you guys thought. I'll take down the picture and I'll share with you guys the picture for the next chapter, though we won't read it yet. I'd like you guys to see it to kind of get a hint of what's on the way. This is the image for chapter 8. Daniel, hey, glad you made it, man. Glad you finally made it, bro. You said that you were going to make it. Well, that was Tempest Blade, chapter 7. We'll do chapter 8 later if we have time and if y'all vote for it. But since Daniel is here, Daniel, you're here for a while, right? Because I know you were really excited about Shogun of Crime. We may jump to that next so that we know that you get it. So let me know, Daniel, my boy, if you're going to be here for that. I'll take this down while we wait. But Daniel, if you're going to be here, if you've only got a limited amount of time, I'll go ahead and do Shogun of Crime now so that way you get it in. Because I don't want you to miss it. Later, the Orc Mafia. Well, I'm waiting on Daniel to let me know that he's still there, because if he had to go, then no point. I can go ahead and at least pull up the image. So. There it is. All right. Well, Daniel has not replied yet. I hope that he is still there. How am I feeling? Better. Still a little bit stopped up, but I'm better than I was. Got some congestion, you know. Daniel, if you're still there, let me know so that I know I can start reading Shogun. Because I want to make sure that you catch it. Russell Westbrook, who's that gorgeous lady? That is an image of Oichi Taiga, the main character of Shogun of Crime. It's fine, Atla. Looks like Daniel might not be here right now, which is a shame. So, not sure. I'll give him one more minute, and then I'm going to start reading the next thing. We'll give him one more minute. Who are the main characters based on other than Oichi? Well... Okay, Daniel is here. Great. All right. Good. All right, then we will start reading Shogun of Crime. Let's do that right now so that you can hear it. Because you'll be here for a minute? Okay, then let's start. All right. We are on Shogun of Crime, Chapter 8. For those who do not remember what happened, Oichi's purse was snatched. And while chasing the perpetrator on bare feet, because her heels were slowing her down, luckily her purse was saved by a young cop by the name of Todd Edwards. And Todd offered to help her out, and also give her a drink, and now she is very much infatuated by him, and that is where we left off. So, let's get started. Shogun of Crime, Chapter 8, written July 13th, 2018. Boss, are you alright? Marcus asked, running into Oichi's bedroom. Oichi sat on the bed in a bathrobe, her hair wet and matted to her neck and shoulders. She looked up in surprise to see Marcus walking in and instinctively covered herself with her robe. "Don't you knock, Marcus?" she demanded. Marcus blushed and turned his eyes away despite the fact that the bathrobe covered her well enough. Sorry, he mumbled. I heard about what happened. It was nothing serious, Oichi sighed. Just some blisters on my feet. Nothing a good bath couldn't fix, she said with a smile, but her feet were still in great deals of pain. It was hard to stand, and the doctor had said it would be best not to do much walking for the time being. For a day or two, she'd have to endure staying at home, though it didn't feel rather relaxing. "I wasn't referring to that. I heard your purse had been stolen, and a police officer helped you get it back?" "That is true," she said. And then you had coffee with him? Again, this is accurate, Oichi answered, a bit annoyed. Why? He demanded. Why would you agree to that? What if he found out who you were? He didn't. I have a feeling this officer is a small fish in the PD. Besides, I'm a firm believer in showing gratitude to those who do what's right. He helped return my purse, and the least I could do was show my thanks, Oichi answered with a smile. Look, boss, we can't risk that kind of exposure again, ma'am, with all due respect. Frankly, I didn't have much choice, Oichi snapped. I couldn't get far on my feet, and he helped me, all right? I had to accept the risk of being found out. But for the record, Marcus, you are my friend, not my father. Don't patronize me. Oichi's eyes flashed, and Marcus quickly bowed. Sorry, I wasn't trying to sound demanding or anything. It's fine. I understand your fear, and I felt it too, to be honest. Oichi lifted her feet into the bed and leaned back against her pillow, letting her hair fall back on the head of the bed, and her eyes glancing up at the ceiling. But perhaps this can be used to our advantage. How so? If we have a pair of eyes in the police, we can use him as a buffer against them. The police force will turn into a handful before long, and we need to ensure that we know their moves before they make them. This young man is naive and unaware of my position. I think we can milk him for information easily as long as we keep my identity a secret long enough. And if he grows wise to it? A single officer is easily taken care of, Oichi hissed. She said all this, but deep in her heart she knew that wasn't the real reason she wanted to stay in contact with Todd. There was another reason, one she dared not admit to Marcus or herself. She couldn't bring herself to imagine it or think it. On to more important matters. We have a serious matter of business to attend to, Marcus. All right, what is it? He quickly pulled out a small iPad and stylus to take notes. Oichi waited patiently for him to get ready, and then she began to talk. Have you heard of a street gang called the Warrior Kings? Oichi asked. Yeah, they're a group of street punks who control Lexington and Aner districts. They're small time, and most aren't even in their late 20s. They spend their time recruiting out of high schools, in particular Lexington High, hoping to be the next big name, I hear. You don't seem that particularly worried about them, Oichi pointed out. Your tone seems dismissive. Well, what do you expect? They're just punks. Hardly organized and barely a fighting force to care about. They don't pose a threat to us. Not right now, they don't, Oichi answered. But they also stand in our way. The fact that they're unorganized means they're harder to truly stamp out. And then the fact that they're young means that they act rashly and selfishly, taking more than they need. They are a menace to the city. And no matter how far we climb in power, if they continue to harass the citizens, then we will be competing for the people's support against their fear of the Warrior Kings. Ma'am, I think you might be giving them too much credit. They're high school punks, and yet they control 2 school districts, Oichi replied. We need the support of those districts, so we will relieve them of their burden of the kings. Ma'am, I don't want to speak out of turn, but go ahead. You're still working to reconsolidate a power right now. You still don't have the full support of your own vassals and lieutenants. Are you sure waging an unending war is the best idea? Marcus asked. Oichi glanced at him with a sideways glare that sent a shiver down his spine. Marcus, we won't wage war with the Warrior Kings. What on earth gave you that idea? Miss Taiga, what are you... But he froze, his voice catching in his voice as he realized that Oichi was smiling, her teeth flashing like fangs in the light of the overhead light. The Warrior Kings are simply bugs scurrying underfoot and waiting to scatter at the first sign of trouble. If we use force to try to crush them, we might kill a few, but the rest would scurry away. There's a much better way to kill bugs like these, she grinned, and you're just the man for the job, Marcus. Me? He asked. Tomorrow I want you to get in contact with the Lexington School District. It's time we got acquainted with the administrators. Perhaps we can use their influence to make a few changes. Hold on, how does that destroy the Warrior Kings? Just get me in touch with the district office tomorrow, and I'll take it from there. Marcus nodded and walked out of the room to make some calls. Can I get you anything while I'm out? Some tea will do, Oichi answered. Thank you. Oichi sat back and smiled, already beginning her plans. Once her feet were healed and she would be able to go, she knew what she would start changing. She was interrupted from her thoughts by the ringing of her phone. Oichi groaned and sat up in her bed. It was late at night, and Marcus had long gone. The echo of the phone had been ringing almost all evening, and she tried her best to ignore it. She heard it all throughout the manor, and she knew that it was the phone that once belonged to her husband. She grimaced and grabbed the cell phone off the dresser and didn't bother looking at the caller ID before answering. What is it? She demanded. Is this a bad time? Sorry, I know it's late, but... Who is this? Oichi demanded. Sorry, it's Officer Todd Edwards from the other day. I got your purse back. Oichi gulped in shock and sat up straight in her bed, shaking the tiredness off her face. Yes, good evening, Officer Edwards, Oichi cried. Is everything all right? Please, I'm not on duty right now. You can just call me Todd if you want, he laughed. Actually, no, I mean, nothing's wrong. It's just wanted to see how your feet were doing, after your barefoot chase. Oichi blushed furiously and looked down at her covers where her feet were hidden. They're healing. The walking is a bit difficult. Right, of course. Well, it's good to hear that you're healing up. Why do you often check on victims of larceny? Oichi asked. Well, not unless I wanted to ask if they wanted to get a drink. Oichi felt her heart stop in her throat, and she blinked a few times as if to shake off the nervous disbelief. Oh, I'd love to, but I don't know if... It's almost midnight. No, I understand. Your feet still aren't up to snuff, and it's probably not a good idea to go walking around right now, of course. But maybe sometime when you're able? I'd love to show you around New Mercia. You are... a really sweet guy, Todd, Oichi smiled, finding the heat of her ears was increasing as they talked. Yes? He asked expectantly. Oichi paused again and frowned. This felt wrong. She just told Marcus earlier how she planned to use Todd as a means to get information, and now she was about to pull all that into motion. There was no way she could hide any dates or drinks she had with Todd, and her excuse would have to be that he was her eyes and ears in the PD. But could she do that? A part of her didn't want to subject him to that. She didn't want to betray this naive young man in such a way. And yet there was something clawing at her heart, a yearning, a want to see him, a pleading in her soul. She just couldn't deny him. She could only blush and smile at the thought of talking to him again. I'd be happy to have a drink with you sometime, she finally answered. That's great! I'll let you get some rest, though. Sorry for bothering you. It was no bother at all, Todd. Thank you. Oichi giggled and then hung up the phone, laying back in bed but unable to find the will or ability to fall asleep. She simply lay in her bed, smiling from ear to ear at hearing Todd's voice. The next morning brought Marcus to Oichi's manor once again. This time he was careful to knock on the bedroom door before entering. His hand was on a briefcase with a laptop inside and several forms. He knocked twice and waited. Come in, Marcus, Oichi called. Marcus entered and Oichi was still in bed, her bathrobe on, but more well covered. Did you do what I asked? Yes, Lexington District Office is willing to set up a meeting with you, Marcus answered. No, you'll be my voice, Oichi explained. It's still too soon for the public to know I'm the face of the Taiga organization. You're a diplomatic man, and you have a strong presence. I want you to attend this meeting in my place. Me? Marcus gasped. But wait, I thought you wanted... This is my plan, Marcus, and I want you to follow it closely. Ma'am? When you meet with the Lexington District Office, tell them that the Taiga organization is deeply concerned about the state of education in New Mercia, and we fear for the next generation that is being corrupted by gang activity and, more specifically, the Warrior Kings. We like to personally fund a series of after-school programs and gang alternative programs, perhaps a few job and college preparation clubs. Hold on. Are you serious? Marcus asked. We're going to finance this stuff? Miss Taiga, there's no way the rest of the gang will want to support this. We're making more money than we know what to do with. I think investing it would be a wise thing to do. In education? Miss Taiga, even if I could get the lieutenants to turn over a portion of our earnings to such an investment, there's no way the district would trust us. We're a gang ourselves, remember? A syndicate? How much funding does the school district get from the government? Oichi asked. Probably not nearly as much as they need. It's not an election year this year, so funds from the mayor's office are going everywhere but where they need to. The hypocrisy of politics is staggering. Exactly. And because of that, the district can't afford to ignore us, Oichi replied. A gang we may be, but we've built a solid, positive reputation around this part of the city, and we're well liked by the populace. That alone puts us a step above the Warrior Kings, who've done nothing but drag children into street wars and gang initiations. Indeed, they might find the idea of accepting our help to be a questionable venture, but they also know that there's no one else in New Mercia who's willing to help them right now. Fair, but I'm still unsure, ma'am. I don't think they'll go for it. And even if they do, they'll suspect strings attached to any amount of money we give them. Then let's speak through our actions rather than our words, Oichi explained. Have a little faith in yourself, Marcus. I wouldn't choose anyone else on my staff to handle this. You're my #1 guy. Thank you, ma'am. Well, I can only promise to do my best. I wouldn't expect much. I expect no more than your best, Marcus. But your best will yield me excellent results, Oichi insisted. I have high expectations for you, but only because I know you can meet them. We're taking our first steps towards the future, and you will be the flagship that lights the way. Oichi leaned forward and began to climb out of her bed. Now, if you'll excuse me, I need another bath to soak my feet. I'll be waiting for your call tonight, Marcus. Don't keep me waiting. And that was chapter 8. While I get the next chapter set up, let me know what you guys thought. I love doing the kind of mix of Oichi's personality. On the one hand, cold, destructive, vengeful tiger. On the other hand, lovesick teenager. Love this story, man. Love this story. And Daniel, I hope you're still there listening, bro. Hello, carbon dioxide. Glad to have you. All right. Well, we will go ahead and move on to Chapter 9 while we still have Daniel, if we still have Daniel. Chapter 9 of Shogun of Crime. Written November 8th, 2018. Let's get started. What was it about water that Oichi loved so much? She ran her leg in and out of the tub, watching the water slide and slip off of her shin, down her calf and her knee, her toes wriggling slightly, and she slipped them back beneath the warm water of the bath. The bathroom of her beautiful manor was nothing short of extravagant, a waste of her late husband. She stretched out her leg in the giant round tub and let her head dip just slightly into the water, wetting her ears and hair. She breathed softly and let the soapy bubbles of the water lather her soft skin. Oichi lived for moments like these. How long had she gone without a good, relaxing bath? Things had finally started to settle down for her since Marcus had begun negotiating with the Lexington School District. It had been a week since then, a whole week. Her vassals and lieutenants had been hesitant and even resistant to her plan to finance the school district. But they'd come around, and it had proven fruitful. Their social presence could now not only be recognized, but also appreciated. The police couldn't touch them or risk upsetting the public, and she was only just getting started. She closed her eyes and inhaled deeply, smiling to herself as she began to hum her favorite song. Suddenly, there was a knock at the door. Oichi opened her eyes and sat up slightly in the tub, her hand reaching for the faucet to turn it off, and her other to cover her exposure. "Who is it?" she called. "It's Marcus, ma'am," Marcus answered. "Don't come in," she called. "I'm in the bath." "Should I come back later?" Marcus called. "What is it you want?" "Well, it's almost time for me to go and discuss next steps with the school committee. I want to know what our goal is. Where do you want me to lead this conversation?" Marcus answered. Oichi leaned back some and sighed. She didn't like the pace this was going. Success was good, but if they moved too fast, then arrogance would set in. She had to ensure progress maintained a steady pace, but she also couldn't afford to be idle with their decisions. "I've been thinking about the Warrior Kings, Marcus," she answered. "They recruit children into their ranks out of local high schools, correct?" "Yes, ma'am." "It's shameless," she growled. "But at the same time, can you blame them? These children. So many don't have good home lives. They have so little encouragement from their guardians and parents. Some might be homeless themselves. A gang life can promise security and a way to make a living, even if it is illegal." "A lot of our underlings come from similar backgrounds," Marcus answered. "What's your point, ma'am?" Oichi raised her hand out of the water and examined her nails. "The issue these children face is not one I'm familiar with. My father and mother both cared earnestly about my success in academics and in my life. But I had a shelter, a home, supportive people to help guide me. And so that's what these children need." "I'm still waiting on a point, ma'am." "When you meet with the committee, we're going to propose the construction of an after-school achievement center." "Oh, what?" "There's an old rundown gymnasium near the high school, right? Let's turn that into a shelter. We'll use it to fund career preparation programs and job skill classes. Maybe extracurricular activities like basketball. I hear that's real popular with the kids." "Do you realize how many resources that would take? And why on earth would we want to sponsor that?" Marcus demanded. "Is there a problem?" Oichi asked darkly, lowering her hand back below the water. She could practically feel Marcus's frustration. "Well, frankly, yes. Plenty of them. Ma'am, I'm not saying you don't know what you're doing. I want to support you, but there are so many things that could go wrong with this. Firstly, assuming that the committee goes for it, that would be a tremendous amount of money and resources we're putting into something that may not even work to our benefit. And secondly, even if it does go over well, the Warrior Kings will still have a strong presence in that high school. Nothing will change that. And finally, all we'd be doing is helping a few children go to college or get careers. It doesn't benefit our interests. Oichi leaned back and smiled, expecting this response. Marcus, have you ever heard of a Xanatos Gambit? A what? It's a scenario where you create a plan in which, no matter what the outcome, you still win or gain something, Oichi explained. If we succeed, and we will, then the gymnasium becomes a shelter to these children, getting them off the streets and weakening the forces of the Warrior Kings. Even if they maintain control of the high school, if they can't operate outside of the high school at full capacity, they will become desperate and perform desperate acts, make mistakes. They will draw negative attention towards themselves, and who will the public turn to in order to put down the ruffians? Us? Marcus asked. Yes, we destroy our enemy and become the heroes of the school district in the same move, Oichi concluded. But let's assume that your fears are realized and that doesn't happen. Say it doesn't hurt the Warrior Kings enough for them to make a mistake. We still have created a haven for these children, putting us in a very favorable perspective to the community. Because of this, our activities will be less as hostile takeovers and more as helpful justice dispensing. We use the gymnasium we help refurbish as a point of contact. We can quietly observe the Warrior Kings from up close and personal and ensure they don't cause trouble. And observe these up-and-coming children. Those who are destined for the streets, we can nurture into proper assets to the organization, and those who are bound for careers in college, we can also observe and see if these future endeavors could be used to our benefit. Regardless of what the Kings do, Marcus, we will win something. And if the committee doesn't go for it? Or if our lieutenants decide not to support this decision? Why the pessimism? Oichi laughed, putting shampoo in her hair. I trust you, Marcus. You're a diplomat, an eloquent speaker, an educated man, and a charmer. You can reach these bigwigs and educators better than I could. If you can't convince those fools to follow our lead, then no one can. Marcus seemed to pause as he was swelling with pride behind the door. I'm flattered, ma'am. Don't be flattered, be productive, Oichi giggled. Is that all you needed? Yes, ma'am, but may I ask, what are you going to do? I have an important appointment tonight, Oichi answered. A potential transaction of services. I'll be unavailable until later, likely 11 or midnight. Understood. Have a good day, Marcus, Oichi called. Same to you, ma'am. As Marcus walked away from the door and Oichi felt herself relaxing, she couldn't push back the smile etching across her face. She hadn't lied, but there was more to her meeting tonight than she wanted Marcus to know about yet. She finally reached behind her as the base of the tub to pull out the cork that had been placed over the drain. The water made a gurgling noise as it fell down the drain, and she climbed to her feet, her body soaked and dripping. She reached for a towel to dry herself, but her mind was already far away from the bathroom and into her bedroom. And beyond that also, her mind and heart were on another matter entirely. Are you serious? Oichi giggled, trying hard not to laugh. Across from her sat Todd, who was struggling not to laugh himself and failing miserably. It's not a joke, he swore. That can't be true. You're making that up. No, he really said that. And then right after we slapped the cuffs on him, he screamed, "You can't do this to me! I got Second Commandment rights!" Oichi could no longer contain herself and burst into fits of laughter with Todd joining in. The serious and business nature of Oichi and Todd was all but dropped, and their armor was lost. It had been replaced with Todd, having abandoned a police uniform, now wearing an evening dress button-down shirt and a bomber leather jacket over it. Slacks and nice shoes adorned his legs and feet, and his hair, though messy from running when Oichi had first met him, now appeared wavy and clean. But Oichi herself had not come unprepared. She wore a beautiful evening dress, allowing her skin to be shown with only small straps to cover her shoulders. Her feet were cushioned by a pair of nice high-heeled slippers, and her hair and face had been done to look more relaxed and cute rather than tough and endearing. She leaned on the round table they sat at, their cushioned seats squeaking as they moved. Ambient music in the restaurant soothed the mind and soul. The night moon outside glowed down on them through the large window that they sat next to. In front of them were 2 glasses of wine, Italian pasta that could intoxicate the senses, and they were nibbling on bread. The life of a police officer seems really entertaining, Oichi giggled. It has its ups and downs, Todd shrugged, but what about you? What do you do? Oichi couldn't resist feeling slightly defensive at the question. She had prepared for it, but still needed to ready herself for the right answer. I came here to... She paused. She looked into Todd's eyes, and the lie seemed to die on her tongue. Todd stared at her curiously, sipping his wine and smirking. What? Is it personal? In some ways, she sighed. If I'm being honest, she cringed at saying it, but she had no choice. I came here to get married. Todd nearly gagged on the wine he sipped, and his eyes bulged out of his head. You're getting married? Then, wait, should we even be having this date? What if... Calm down, Todd. Let's just say he backed out. I'm not married nor expecting to be, I promise. She had to stifle a laugh as Todd relaxed again and breathed out happily. You scared me there for a moment. I thought your husband was going to come down here and kick my ass. Then just arrest him, she smirked. You are a cop. That'd be a serious abuse of power. Todd shook his head. Why not? Those in power often abuse it, Oichi pointed out. Todd chuckled and set his wine glass down. What, we talking philosophy? That a bad thing? Not at all. I love philosophy. Todd cleared his throat and nodded. Well, it's true. Those who gain power have a bad habit of using it in the wrong way, but, I mean, that's the nature of good, isn't it? What do you mean? Oichi asked. Well, in pop culture, we think of those who are evil as the ones who have all the power, and those who are good have no power, and are just rebels who stand up against that which is more powerful, right? The underdog archetype, Oichi agreed. Correct, but that's silly to me. Good can only be accomplished by those who have power and use it in the right way. Those without any power will never make any significant impact on the world at all. So you believe the underdog archetype is untrue? Oichi asked. Then what about America itself? According to your history, you somehow defeated the Empire of Great Britain in the 18th century. Are you not underdogs? No, I don't believe the archetype is untrue. I just think it's misunderstood. I mean, doesn't the underdog still have to have some form of power in order to overcome evil? David may have defeated Goliath, but he needed the power of God to win it. He was given power and an opportunity for success and took it. So what are you, Todd? An underdog? I guess. I mean, I don't like handouts. I'm sure my family would gladly support me or finance anything I wanted to do, but, well, being a police officer is something I always wanted to do. But why? Oichi pressed. Because I get the chance to do something good, he shrugged. I grew up around people who were fine with bending moral codes and ideals if it suited their interests. And I was never really satisfied with that. Is that right? Oichi asked. A slight pang of guilt slapping the back of her mind like an authoritative parent. Truth is, my mom was killed in a drive-by shooting, he explained. It happened when I was young, but I'll never forget the image and the feelings that came with it. But after I got over the grieving, I realized what I wanted to do. I want to make New Mercia a safe place to live, and end this ridiculous gang war that it's swept up in, he explained. And how will you start? Oichi asked. I'm not sure, he answered honestly, rubbing his head. But no, tonight's not about work. This is about us, right? Let's just enjoy it. Todd, Oichi interrupted, placing a hand on his. We're not talking about work. We're talking about what you love, what you're passionate about. I do want to hear what you think. Please? Todd blushed heavily and looked away, daring not to gaze into her eyes for too long or he'll lose control. Well, if you're sure. Look, I'm just an officer. A beat cop. I don't get to make big decisions. But if I was commissioner or mayor, the first gang that I want gone is the Leviathan. Leviathan? Oichi asked. It's not their real name. In reality, they're a crime syndicate that grew real powerful in New Mercia and sort of set up a shop. They earned the name Leviathan based on some biblical passage I can't remember. I'm not familiar with the term anyway, Oichi replied. Todd reached into his jacket and pulled out a small yellow book that made Oichi giggle. You carry a Bible with you, really? Well, my mom gave it to me when I started. Look, I went off to some private school when I was a kid, and my mom gave it to me when I went off, and after she died, I just kind of held on to it. I know it's weird, but humor me, okay? I think it was in Job or something. Here it is. Yeah, it's something in, I think, Job 41. He read out a Bible verse that Oichi only half listened to. Her mind was halfway listening to something else in her mind. So, the Leviathan, are they that dangerous? She asked. Well, they're dangerous, all right, but right now they aren't stupid enough to do anything outlandish, she explained. They have a long-time rivalry with the Timberwolf Triads. The Triads? In New Mercia? Oichi asked, slightly surprised. She knew about the Chinese Triads back when she lived in Japan. She hadn't expected to encounter them here in America. Yeah, the two syndicates are pretty close to each other in terms of control and power in the city. Todd explained. They have a hand in most businesses and politics. They maintain the balance of power, which is why we haven't fallen into pure anarchy yet. As long as they keep each other in check, we're good. But, come on, it's only a matter of time. The head of Leviathan, Logan B. Aries, he's dying from esophageal cancer. He's expected to pass away sometime later this year. And once he dies, the Leviathan will be without a head until they can pick a new boss. And everyone in the Force expects to try to take advantage of that. I see. Uchi sipped her wine carefully while she considered this new information. She'd have to talk to Marcus about this. Look, this isn't what I wanted our first date to go like. I'm really sorry, Todd laughed. Don't be, Oichi answered. I've enjoyed this a lot. Well, most girls won't want to hear about gangs and mafias and such, Todd muttered. Let's be honest, Todd. I'm not most girls, Oichi winked. No, you're definitely not. He laughed and leaned forward. You are definitely a tigress among kittens. Ooh, you're a poet, she teased, leaning just close enough so they were only inches apart. For the right woman, I'm anything you want me to be. How about be my man? Oichi asked, leaning in to take her man's lips in her own. And for a brief moment, the tigress let down her guard. For a small period, she could be Oichi Taiga, be a woman in love. She could hold this man in her kiss and not worry about the politics and economical movement of her underground organization. But she knew. She knew even now as lips sucked on lips that this peace would not last. When she returned home, she had to begin moving pieces on the board, prepping herself. The tigress now had two new predators in her jungle, a leviathan and a timber wolf. And that was chapter 9. Let me know what you guys thought. And Daniel, especially you, I want to know your thoughts too. You're the one who is really wanting to hear Shogun of Crime. Alright. Well, we will take a break from Shogun of Crime for now and move on to the next story on the docket. I think we'll hit the tale of Tomaki next. Daniel, I hope you were here for the full thing. I really do. I know you said you only had a minute, but I hope you got to hear the full thing. Really, really enjoyed that. Alright. Let's go ahead and pull up the image for the tale of Tomaki. Oh, Daniel, I'm loving Taiga so far. She's definitely got a huge flux of different personalities and switches seamlessly. I feel for the girl. Let's just hope her love interest is ready for the ride. Oh, my friend, dude, it's going to be wild. It is going to be absolutely wild. Well, if you still have some time, we're about to start the tale of Tomaki, which is the story about the Saiyan, of course. For those who do not know, this was one of my earliest stories, actually. Let me see if I can pull up a good image of it. Well, I hope I can. Come on. Don't act up tonight, computer. There it is. There it is. Got it. Got it. Got it. Okay, pull that up. There we go. We'll use Tomaki's image right here so that you all can see what story we're on. And if I remember correctly, we were on chapter 19. Oh, man, this will be fun. So we're finally getting to the heavy stuff. We're finally getting to the heavy stuff now. Oh, glad you'll be here, Daniel. Glad you'll be here. We're getting into Tomaki. So for those who do not know where we left off, Tomaki just recently rescued Victoria from Hermes, who he captured, but in the fight, Tomaki suddenly felt his bloodlust fire up, and that scared him a little bit. He's also starting to question a lot of his motivations. Meanwhile, the triad that is being run by Mamaragon is falling apart. Mamaragon is not happy about it. So we are going to... Oh, and so that y'all know, so that y'all remember what he looks like let's pull up Mamaragon's image so that you all remember, because some of y'all are new. Daniel, I'm looking at you. This is what Mamaragon looks like, so that y'all know. Scroll down a little bit. Should be... Did I not save the image? Ah, shame on me. I did not save the image. I'll pull it up real fast. Won't take but a sec, guys. There we go. Okay, that's one. That's two. Figured I'd get two images so that you guys could have a good look at them. Let's pull this down so that y'all can see it better. Alright, let's get these up there. This is the first image of Mamaragon, so that you guys have an idea. Excuse me, Raven, it's Magmar. Shut up, Hannah. But yep, that's Mamaragon. First image of him. Looks pretty cool, I must say. Really love the design. I had a lot of fun playing with that design. He's pretty awesome. And then the second image, I'll show you guys that too. There we go. That is the second image. And this one shows Tomaki squaring off with Mamaragon, so I thought this was a good look. Alright, we will leave it right there for now. Let's get started, shall we? Tale of Tomaki, Chapter 19. Written May 20th, 2016. So this is an old one. Alright, let's do it. I'm sorry, Mamaragon, Artemis whispered fearfully. The figure before her was tapping his finger on the arm of his chair angrily. The air seemed to tingle with his rage at the news. That idiot. I asked Hermes to do one job for me, and he can't even accomplish that on his own. Sir, with all due respect, this Tomaki is far more powerful than any of us anticipated. He's become a force. Are you saying this is because I underestimated him, Artemis? Mamaragon snapped. That this failure is because of me? No, Artemis cried, dropping to her knees. I would never dream of such a deduction, sir. Well, you'd be right, Mamaragon said. Sir? This is my fault. I've taken our foe a little too lightly. I should have acted the instant that I saw what happened to Atlas. Atlas may be an idiot, but he was a strong one. Hermes didn't stand a chance if he encountered the Saiyan, and I should have known that. And now my once prestigious organization has been reduced to you, Komodo, and myself. And I have a feeling Komodo is going to abandon us soon, too. All our executive members have fled. Look, sir, I know we've suffered losses, major losses, but I believe this can be fixable. You don't need to blame yourself, sir. You couldn't have known that. There's only one way to fix this, he said. I need to act. It's time I took responsibility for all this, Mamaragon answered. I shall find this Tomaki and those who helped him, and I shall see him suffer before I end his miserable life. With each breath, Artemis felt as if the room was shaking with the wrath of her boss. Sir, you're gonna kill everyone who even helped Tomaki too? They must be made an example, and that includes the Rhodes family. If I cannot use Victoria Rhodes as a bargaining chip with her father, then I shall simply do away with her and him. Better to remove bad crops and plant new seeds than to pray bad crops will grow good fruit someday. But sir, if you kill her, what about... I'm aware of my arrangement with Komodo. I'm afraid it's out of my hands now. Inform him that our agreement has ended. He is no longer bound to my service. And also advise him that as a gesture of gratitude, he should leave the city immediately. Unless I find him first. Sir, Yes, sir, I'll do what you say, Artemis accepted. Actually, Mamaragon muttered, I'll do it personally. I need to pay that idiot a visit anyway. He stood up suddenly and began to walk to the door. Oh, and Artemis. Margon's voice froze her, and she shivered a little at the sound. Yes, sir? Your loyalty will be greatly rewarded. Artemis smiled nervously before Margon left, but the smile vanished as soon as she was sure he'd left the room. At this point, Artemis was beginning to understand what Hermes had been talking about. Margon was a terrifying man. I punched the heavy bag repeatedly, sending it bouncing back and forth with each strike. I was frustrated, determined, and focused. Hayato stood by watching, playing with the stick on the ground. I'd stayed at Dr. Nicole's home for 3 days, letting her treat my wounds and letting me rest. I didn't want to leave, and she didn't force me. But after the 3rd day, I knew I needed to go and talk to my Master Hayato about the whole thing. I'd thanked her for letting me stay, and she simply said I could come back when I wanted to. That's something I told myself I would do. For now, I had to talk to Master Hayato. He looked after me after a few more rounds. You're all over the news, boy. That fight above the city was no joke, Hayato noted. Yes, sir. I highly doubt this Mamaragon fellow will simply overlook this, Hayato pointed out. I doubt it, too. Are you nervous? He asked. I'm a Saiyan, Master. I live for battle, I replied forcefully. That's not an answer, he pointed out wisely. I stopped punching the bag and stared at my trembling hands. Something's changed about you, boy. So talk. Yeah, I'm nervous, I confessed. But more than anything, I'm scared of myself. Why? Sir, when I fought Hermes, when I battled him in the sky, he put Victoria in danger. He nearly killed her, and there was a moment when I wanted to kill him. I see. And how does that make you feel? At the time, I liked it. That's the worst part. I enjoyed the sensation, Master. I relished it. I wanted him dead. I swung my foot back at the heavy bag and tore it off its chain with a single kick. Hayato watched it sail to the other side of the yard as I fumed. I snapped out of it. I saved him, but what if I hadn't? What am I, Master? Am I a killer? Only you know the answer to that question. I'm a Saiyan, Master, and as a Saiyan, I'm born to kill. But I never had the desire to kill when I was growing up. Now, that day, that moment, I remembered it. And that scares me more than anything else. What if I'm becoming what I was born to be? Tomaki, Hayato spoke up. The only time I saw you want to kill someone was when your mother died. I winced at the memory. But you didn't. You came back to your senses. Then all I'm doing is repressing urges, I snapped. That's all. I'm a monster in the skin of a human. And what if you are? Hayato asked. I looked at him stunned. Do you think you're the only man who lost his composure and self-control when his loved ones were in danger? It's in a man's nature to protect the things he cares about. Wanting to destroy the thing that threatens it is natural. But not when you're me. Not when you can do what I can, I argued. And besides, there's more than that bothering me. I'm scared for more than myself. For Victoria, I explained. Her and everyone else in the city. Mamaragon knew she was a weakness for me. And he might exploit that or try to put someone else in harm's way to get to me. And what if they do? What if he cheats and someone gets hurt just like your mother? Hayato asked. I nodded wordlessly, turning away from him and walking towards the wall. You know what I said to my mom before she died? I asked. I told her I loved her, and I told her I thought of her as a mother too. I let her know that she was important to me, and then I lost her right there. I waited till the last goddamn moment to tell her the truth, and now I can never make amends. And what of Victoria? Will you wait for the last moment to tell her how you feel now? Hayato asked. Well, that's the thing, Master. I have no idea how I feel. I mean, she makes me feel so strange when I'm around her. I get this knot in my throat when she speaks to me, and when she touches my hand or my injury, I feel my heart beat a little faster. Sounds pretty clear to me, boy, because that sounds like love. It can't be love, because I didn't feel these things around Mom. Does that mean I didn't love my mom? Love for a mother's not the same as love for a girl your age, Hayato chuckled. Well, what do I do, Master? I asked. I'm scared that if I tell her I love her and it's not really love, she'll hate me, and then I'll hate myself. But if I don't tell her something, I run the risk of missing the one chance I have. Well, In my humble opinion, Tomaki, even if you don't know how you feel, it's best to tell her something rather than nothing, Hayato explained. That, and I find a bouquet of flowers never hurts either. Thanks, Master, I replied. Oh, don't you thank me yet. You went and damaged my heavy bag without permission. Go clean up your mess and give me 100 reps on that bag before you run off. Hey, Victoria! Victoria paused and looked to see Jada walking towards her, her normal smiling face a mixture of worry and shock. Oh, hey, sorry, I know, I was late this morning. How can you be worried about tardiness? Jada cried. I was trying to find you all day. Victoria, you were kidnapped! It'd been a week since her scuffle with Hermes. The flyboy was now being shipped to a maximum security prison, along with his remaining crew. Over the last few days, several members of the triad had either turned themselves over or fled for parts unknown. While many in the city were happy for this news, Victoria was distracted. Tomaki hadn't been seen at school or by the police since the incident. He still didn't have a phone, so she could reach out to him, and he wasn't in the hospital after his fight with Hermes. She was sure he'd been injured. He'd gotten shot while protecting her, but where was he? There was only one person who knew where he might be, and that was Master Hayato himself, but she didn't have the time or transportation to go talk to him. She was worried. When would she see him again? She'd tried to go about her school life as normal, but she'd become the talk of the campus since she'd been kidnapped. Now everyone wanted to talk to her about it, Jada included. Yes, I know. I was there, Victoria groaned as Jada walked with her. We were terrified for you, and Warren, he was just beside himself, Jada added. Oh, yeah. Victoria suddenly frowned deeper. When Hermes had tried to grab her, Warren had tried to stop him, but he'd been knocked aside without much effort. She'd seen him a few times since then, and he'd been more than apologetic. She kept walking with Jada out to the parking lot to head home, and Jada was talking a mile a minute. Victoria let her. It was just how she was. I mean, I told my big brother all about it. Marcus was sure that you'd be okay, because he was right. But who would have thought that Tomaki could do all that? And where is he? Everyone wants to thank him for what he did, and oh. Jada finally stopped as she saw someone standing in the lot ahead of them. Victoria looked too and saw the tall and nervous expression of Warren. He was wearing a tank top and baggy pants, his hair tied back and his eyes looking very concerned. Warren? Vicky, glad I caught you. Are you all right? He asked. I'm fine, Warren. I was the last 7 times you talked to me, Victoria smiled. Please don't worry about me so much. He's right, Victoria. You ought to be more concerned about all this. If the triad came after you because of your daddy, then you should be way more cautious. After what Tomaki did to Hermes, I think they'll think twice, Victoria laughed. Well, no one's seen him in days, Warren countered. Maybe he flew the coop. That's not who he is, Victoria argued defensively. He wouldn't... Look, I know he's a friend, but... Warren groaned. I owe him too, you know. He saved my life too, but you gotta stop relying on him, Vicky. Let me take care of you too. Or Jada. Amen, Jada nodded. What makes you two think I need taking care of? Last I checked, I've got a concealed carry permit. What, you think a gun will bother half the goons after you? Warren snapped. Half of them are bulletproof and the other just... I know, Victoria rolled her eyes. Dad's told me all about half of these freaks. I'm not afraid of them. Warren sneered at this but shook his head. You really should be. Anyway, I'm not here to talk about all that. I'm here to drive you home. Come on, he offered. I know your car is still in the shop and your dad is working late. Victoria sighed and smiled. God, you are persistent, she laughed. And what about you, Jada? Warren asked. You need a ride too? And no thanks, my brother's coming to get... Oh, that's him there. Warren and Victoria turned to see a blue car drive up to the lot. It parked by the sidewalk and the engine turned off. Out stepped a young black man with a leather jacket on and a green undershirt. His long dreadlock hair was tied back in a band, and his yellow eyes looked at the three of them with a friendly smile. Jada, he called. Come on, I got supper started. Hey, Marcus. Jada sprinted to her brother and threw her arms around him fast. Thanks for getting here so fast. I wanted you to meet Victoria. You know, the girl who got kidnapped? Remember you said she'd be all right, and she is. Vicky, meet my fortune-telling brother. She giggled. Marcus smiled and walked to her, holding out his hand. Good to meet you. Sorry I ain't met you before, but work keeps me gone all the time. Victoria extended her hand to take his. Pleasure to meet... Ow! Warren suddenly slapped her hand away fast and glared daggers at Marcus. Say what you want to me, not her, Warren hissed. Warren, for crying out loud! Easy, man, Marcus laughed, holding up his hands. She your girl, right? Didn't mean nothing by it, just being polite. Yeah, sure, Warren muttered, but Jada and Victoria were both staring at Warren in surprise. He was always protective, but he never acted like this. Warren, calm down, Victoria growled. He's Jada's brother, not Hermes or one of those punks. No, it's fine. I'd be protective too, Marcus said. We do anything for the people we love, right? Marcus asked, wrapping an arm around Jada and smiling. Jada nodded him and hugged him tight, giving Warren an accusing look. Yeah, we would, Warren hissed. Anything. Marcus nodded a smile of understanding. Well, no harm done then, Marcus laughed, his white teeth showing momentarily in contrast to his dark face. He then pat Jada on the shoulder. Let's head home. It was nice meeting you both. Oh, and your name was Warren, right? Marcus called. Your girlfriend is Lucky. I'm not his girlfriend, Victoria grumbled. Well, he sure thinks you are, Marcus laughed. Warren just stood there glaring dangerously at Marcus, but it wasn't with anger. It was with fear. Anyway, why not work out your problems? Go on a trip or something. Get out of town, you know? The way he said that, Victoria noticed, wasn't natural. In fact, Marcus had a coldness to his eyes in that moment that sent a shiver down her spine, but it was gone just as soon as it appeared. Take care, you two. And with that, he was gone. Warren, what on earth is wrong with you? Victoria demanded. The way you acted was completely... Come on, Warren snarled, taking Victoria's wrist and dragging her towards his car. What the hell? Let me go. We don't have time. We've got to run. Run, Victoria cried. Warren, let me go and tell me what's going... That man was Mamaragon, Warren shouted. What? Vicky, that was Mamaragon, and he knows what you look like now. He's coming for you, and I have to get you far away from the city as I can. Jesus Christ, he wants to kill you! And that was chapter 19. Let me know what you guys think while I get a drink real quick. All right. Well, I suppose we can keep going. Daniel, run, girl, quit asking questions and go. I love it. All right, let's get on to the Tale of Tomaki. Chapter 20. Here we go, guys. Chapter 20. When Master Hayato finally let me go, I flew straight into town to buy a bouquet of flowers. I didn't know her favorite kind, so I'd walk up to the door and knock. I'd hold out the flowers. Hey, Victoria, I said loudly, trying to sound professional. So I was just walking by and No, that won't work. She'll just see the flowers. Okay, what about, Oh, Victoria, so, I found these flowers and... No, idiot, why is this so hard? I ran over the scene over and over, each time not satisfied with it. But soon the time was upon me. Her house was just below me, and I gulped, landing on the sidewalk, riding to the front steps. Okay, Tomaki, keep it together, I growled. You fought mutants, androids, and losers with jetpacks. Giving a girl flowers is nothing. I'd rather be fighting those monsters now. I whimpered, walking up to the door and holding out my shaking knuckles. Just do it, okay? Just say hello, give her the flowers, and tell her that you love her. Or do you even Damn it, what am I even doing? What are you doing? Huh? I looked up, but saw no one. Who was talking? Victoria, please just listen to me. I recognized the voice. That was Warren. It sounded like it was coming from behind the house in the backyard. Listen to what? What you're asking me to do is stupid. It's for your own good, Victoria, Warren urged. I stepped back and flew over the house, landing on the roof to get a better view. Warren was there with Victoria. They were standing in the garden and talking. Though Victoria looked rather angry, while Warren looked more than upset and frustrated. I'm not running away with you. My heart jumped in my throat at her words. Running away with Warren? Was I already too late? Had Warren won her heart? No, that couldn't be true. My fist clenched tight and I bit my lip furiously. Warren started cursing angrily. Would you listen to me? He cried. Margon is coming here and he will kill you. You're in danger. Everyone will be in danger. That's why Tomaki is going to fight him and kick his ass, Victoria argued. And how the hell do you even know that was Mamaragon? That was Marcus, Jada's brother. He wasn't threatening anyone. I get that you don't take rejection well, but this is beneath you. This isn't about me. You don't understand. He's after you specifically. Why me? Victoria asked. Because you're Tomaki's friend and... ally. He's going to take out anyone who helped Tomaki, including you, Warren explained. Victoria raised her eyebrow and crossed her arms. And now that he's seen your face, he's coming to kill you if I don't get you gone. Okay, then tell me this. How do you know that's Mamaragon? How do you know any of this, Warren? She asked. Warren suddenly froze a moment and rubbed the back of his head angrily, as if he'd said more than he meant to. Look, that's not important. How I know isn't important. Warren, what aren't you telling me? Victoria demanded. Please, just drop it. Go pack your things. I'll explain everything later when I'm not packing a damn thing until I know the truth. Victoria, just listen to me now! Victoria finally screamed. Warren Winston groaned. Look, promise you won't yell at me, okay? Promise you won't yell. Please promise me. I'm not promising anything. I've been working for the Triad, he muttered. The entire world seemed to run in slow motion, and I felt my own heart catch in my chest. The enemy. Warren had been working with the enemy. Victoria looked just as stunned. You've what? Victoria shrieked. Don't yell, Warren pleaded. Please just don't yell, don't yell. Hear me out. After you and I broke up, I began showing signs of mutation, okay? I'm a mutant too, Victoria. I was scared. I already have a record, and I knew I'd be locked up or institutionalized if anyone found out. There's not a lot of places to go when you're like me. And when I heard what Mamaragon and the Triads were doing, I offered to join them in taking over the city if he left you alone. I was trying to protect you. Protect me, Victoria laughed. You put hundreds of lives in danger so you could get what out of me? Money? A cuddle buddy? Sex? It's not that, Victoria, I swear. I was just thinking of your safety, Warren cried. But Victoria was already fuming and pacing back and forth angrily. All this time you were one of them, and because of me? Victoria, you need to calm down and just listen to me. So what's your fancy code name, huh? All the Triads got those stupid code names for each other. What'd they name you? Who should I tell Dad to arrest when I hand you over to him? My name was Komodo. I felt my blood boiling over. I wanted to rush down there and kill Warren where he stood. That same fury built up in me that I'd felt the day Mom died. A week ago when Hermes put Victoria in danger. This animal. I'd heard his name constantly in my dealings with the Triads, and all this time he'd been right next to Victoria and me. Just biding his time. He was right there, right in front of the girl I cared about. Victoria's eyes went wider than I'd ever seen anyone's reach. Komodo? You're the Triad's informant? You're the one who gave them intel on Tomaki and the city? I had to. If I didn't, they were going to kill you. I'd rather be dead than let those monsters take the city, Victoria cried. Get out of here, Warren, or Komodo, whatever you call yourself. Just go. Listen, I'm not going to let Mamaragon kill you, Warren argued. He won't. Tomaki's going to beat him. Oh, don't give me that shit. Tomaki has no idea what he's up against. I'm getting you out of here right now. He reached out to grab her wrist, but Victoria pulled away instantly and struck Warren across the cheek with a vicious slap. You're pathetic, she hissed. You ran away. You gave yourself over to the Triads, and you turned your back on everyone here. And me. And I almost wish you'd abandoned me. I wish I'd never seen your face again. To think that this is what happened to you. Warren stared at her, a hand on his cheek where he'd just been slapped, and Victoria glared at him angrily. Now get out of here! You want to run away, you run, but I'm not abandoning Tomaki or my dad or this city. I'm sorry, Victoria, but it's out of your hands. Suddenly Warren reared back and his whole body began to spasm. His flesh turned to scales before my eyes, and from his trousers sprung a long, green, lizard-like tail, his head reshaping itself into something like a lizard's, and yet not quite losing its humanity. He looked something like a large monitor lizard that had learned to stand up. Fangs grew from his mouth, and his hands and feet turned to claws. His shoulders and muscles bulged out massively, making him look like a great lizard man of some sort. He even appeared like some kind of dragon. Hell, maybe he was a Komodo dragon that had learned to walk and talk. Victoria leapt away from him and pulled a gun out of the back of her pants, aiming it at Komodo. The lizard just glared at her and knocked her aside, grabbing her wrist furiously. Sorry, but all this will be better after tomorrow, he retorted, his voice a feral hissing sound. I couldn't stand it a moment longer. I leapt off the roof and dove down towards the two. Let her go! Komodo turned just in time to see me coming before my knee met his face. With a grunt like a wounded animal, Komodo went flying backwards into the fence at the edge of the yard. Tomaki, Victoria gasped. What are you doing here? I wasn't expecting to find a Triad member here, right, Komodo? I snarled. Stay out of this, Tomaki, Komodo shouted. I just want to help her. You've helped enough, I hissed. Get out of here. Right now.
I'm not leaving her to die, Komodo shouted. She was mine first, you monkey bastard!
I tensed up at this outburst and my fist clenched in a fury. Yours? I sneered. Yours! My energy exploded from within and I felt my ki go wild. Is that all she is to you? I charged him, my teeth bared and my fist drawn back. He swung out his large claw-like hand and I knocked it aside with a swipe of my arm. My fist met his chest and he coughed in surprise and pain. I pounded repeatedly, each time building on power and anger as my fist tenderized his chest and stomach. He couldn't even scream in pain. I was hitting him too fast for him to draw breath. She's not yours, you damned lizard traitor! I slammed my elbow into the side of his face and I dropped down, grabbing his tail. Yanking hard on it, I swung him backwards, crashing him into a cluster of trees and rocks outside the yard. He groaned and rose to his feet again, bleeding from his head and mouth. I flew in after him and shoved my open hand onto his chest. He screamed as raw energy exploded from my hand, causing him to spit up blood onto the ground. He finally threw me off of him and I landed by the fence, taking a defensive stance.
God damn you, Tomaki, he sputtered. If you'd stayed away, none of this would have happened. It's all your fault that Victoria's in danger, that Mamaragon's coming. Who's really the traitor here?
Shut up, Warren, Victoria cried, running up beside me. I glanced at her and almost instantly felt myself calming down, just at her being near me.
I've heard enough of this. I know you think what you did was right, but you're wrong.
What else could I do? Komodo cried. You would have hated me for what I am now.
I don't hate you for being a mutant, Warren, Victoria cried, but I do hate what you've done for the Triad.
I did it for you, Victoria.
And that makes me feel even worse, Victoria replied. Please, Warren, go. Get away from here.
Victoria cried. I snarled at him, as if daring him to argue. Warren glared back at me and then turned.
I'll be back,
he hissed, running off into the forest.
I can't believe it,
Victoria sighed, walking back towards her house with me beside her. There were tears in her eyes as she rubbed her head and cried silently.
I trusted him. I thought I could give him a second chance, and now?
It wasn't your fault, I said.
He fed the Triad information about the town and about you, she cried. It's all because I let him get close to me again. I told him about all that had changed in the town. I told him everything. About Dad, about the police, about everything.
You had no way of knowing.
I was stupid. Just a stupid, naive little girl,
Victoria sniffed. I felt pain in my heart seeing her crying like this, and I ran my fingers through her hair, struggling to think of the right thing to say. Well, I think it was nice of you, I muttered. I think you were trying to show kindness to him, and that's cool. She giggled a bit and rubbed her nose.
Stop, she ordered, but thanks.
Suddenly she turned and gave me a puzzled look.
By the way, what are you doing here, Tomaki?
I nearly slapped my head in realization. Right, I almost forgot! I leapt straight up towards the roof where I left the bouquet and jumped back down again, holding it out. It was a bit wrinkled up from when I dropped it, but I held it out to her all the same. She stared at it in surprise and then at me.
Tomaki, what is this?
I have something to tell you, I grumbled. I guess that now is kind of a weird time to say it, but I don't know what it is, Victoria, but when I'm around you, I feel different than any other time. I can't explain it. I'm kind of scared of how I get like this. I'm scared of how I feel, but I also really like it. You make me feel different than anyone else. I don't know what it is, but I wanted to tell you that's how I feel. So here are these flowers. I shoved the flowers towards her, a deep red blush growing on my face. She took them from my hands, and I heard her giggle.
Tomaki, you are adorable.
I am not.
You really are, she laughed. I mean, every girl dreams of hearing a guy say they love her, but what you said felt so much more sincere than anything I've ever heard. You didn't bullshit it or anything. I love just how straightforward you are. I mean, I never said I love you, though. I don't know if it's love or not. I don't... Is it? I asked. Well, it might be, she winked. Maybe in time we can find out?
She leaned up to me and pressed her lips gently on my cheek, and I felt my energy spike again. My tail twitched and went rigid as my whole body felt like it had been electrocuted. She pulled away and giggled again.
You're really sweet, Tomaki. Thank you. I know it's a bit awkward, but would you like to come in and have something to drink?
Yes, please, I squeaked. With a laugh, Victoria escorted me inside to enjoy a cup of something that I wasn't sure I wanted to drink yet, but if it meant spending time with her, I didn't mind. I was still reeling over the feeling of her lips on my cheek.
You know, I'm sorry about the way Warren was acting, Jada sighed. He's just super protective of Victoria sometimes.
It makes sense, Marcus shrugged. We do anything for the people we love. He looked in her direction. Anything.
Marcus, you okay? Jada asked. You seem tired lately. You work a lot later, too.
Yeah. Layoffs at the office. Lots of people quitting or getting fired. I'll be real, sis. Not sure that business will stay open much longer.
Oh, no, Jada cried. What you gonna do?
I'll work it out, Marcus answered. I always do. I'm going to make sure you never got to worry about anything, so don't start worrying about me.
I'm your sister. I gotta worry about you.
She leaned her head on Marcus's shoulder as he lay back in his bed and looked at her sadly. Jada couldn't know who he was. He had to keep this from her. He'd turn off her alarm clock tonight, make sure she didn't wake up for school, let her sleep in, and then he'd go. He'd march into Zhang and punish the police for getting in his way, and he'd kill Victoria for being a pain in his side. If Komodo was still there to stop him, he'd die too. He didn't know that Victoria and his sister were friends. That was unfortunate. Still, she'd make new friends. Safer friends. Better than leave someone like Victoria alive willing to oppose the triads. And finally, the Saiyan would die. He would die screaming. Everything he'd done for her. So that she'd be safe. Safe from all those who would hurt her. All those who could get to her. When he ruled this fucked up city, no one would ever put his baby sister in danger again. Not his father, not the criminal thugs, and not that damned Saiyan. We do anything for the people we love, Marcus snarled into the night.
I know, Marcus, I know,
Jada whispered. No, not yet, he whispered. All right, and that was Chapter 20. So, what did y'all think of that? Well, later on, you're going to learn Mamaragon's backstory and why he's doing what he's doing, and you'll understand all about his motivations. So, Daniel, if you're still there, what did you think? Daniel's kind of like, wait, what? Oh, boy. Can't read any more tonight because I've got to finish editing the next few chapters. I'm going through each chapter and kind of fixing them up because these are old stories and I'm having to fix them up. Alright, well, I guess that means we better move on to Monster Club. And if we have time, we will read one more story. Let's pull this down and put up a Monster Club image. Daniel, if you're there, you gotta let me know what you thought, man. Are his actions good on his point of view, Raven? Mamaragon knows that what he's doing is wrong, but he sees it all as necessary. See, I don't want to give away too much, but basically Mamaragon is doing everything he can to keep his sister safe. And you'll understand why in time. But he believes that by controlling the underworld, controlling the criminal underworld, he will be able to keep his sister safe. And Tomaki is a threat to that. Tomaki is a threat to his ability to keep control, and so he is going to take that down. Alright, so let me pull up Monster Club. Let me get an image up there, too. What do we put up? What do we put up? What do we put up? Let me see. Let's put up a picture of Kate. No, how about a picture of Michelle? I'd love to put up. Let's put up a picture of Michelle up there. Let's do that. Nice. We'll use one of Turtle's images of Michelle from the video game. Yep, we'll put up the picture of Michelle from the video game. Hey. Is Daniel going to be a mod? You know what? I might just make him a mod. You never know. I might just do that. I'll ask him at work sometime. All right. Can someone recap the last Monster Club story? So essentially what happened in the last Monster Club chapter is they managed to hunker down in a gas station for a little while, and now they are heading back home to their home that Solomon owns. But when they got there, a monster hunter was waiting for them and managed to blow up the house. And they're all waking up from that. That is essentially what's going on. Okay, so let's do it. We are on Monster Club Chapter 30. Monster Club Chapter 30, written June 29th, 2015. Who's Daniel? Daniel is a really good friend of mine and one of my bosses at work at Longhorns. He's one of the managers who I work with. He is also a fan of many things I enjoy. He likes anime, he likes video games, he likes stories, he likes all that kind of stuff, and he's been joining us for a little while. So Daniel, his name is Daniel Phillips. He was in chat for a little bit. All right, anyway, let's do it. Chapter 30. Abraham didn't want to wake up. His head was ringing and pounding like a drum set. His body felt completely shattered. His arms didn't want to move. Did he even have ligaments anymore? Surely he was just a jumbled pile of pieces and broken body parts. Abraham, get up! Abraham felt something grabbing him and trying to lift him. Don't move him, Katie. He's in critical condition. Damn it, where are the others? Abraham could hear the voices. They sounded so close and worried. That was Katie and Calypso. There was no question. But how were they still alive? The explosion? Abraham remembered the explosion, the heat of the fire and the sheer impact of the bomb. The horrible smell of ash and smoke filled his lungs and he couldn't breathe. It hurts, Abraham moaned. Don't try to move, Abraham. You have a broken rib and several major bruises all over your abdominals, and I'm worried you might have a concussion, Calypso cried. The fog was lifting and Abraham was beginning to get his vision back. He could see again, but the world was blurry and the glowing light of the fire was burning his eyes. He tried to lift his hands to his eyes, but even the thought of such an act hurt his aching body. Where are the others? Abraham coughed. Well, we're looking for them now. Asher's okay. He's helping move debris. We found Sarah. She's unconscious, but we think that everyone's fine. What about Tamil, Solomon, Michelle, Annie? Abraham asked, trying to sit up. He felt a pair of hands shove him down, and he cried out in pain. We said don't move, you numbskull, Katie snapped. We're looking for them, okay? You stay here and let Calypso treat you. But they're in trouble, Abraham pleaded. I have to help. The best thing you can do is just rest. I found Annie! Calypso, get over here! It was Asher's voice. Calypso leapt up. Coming! She wasted no time running to it. Abraham again tried to get up, but he was being held down by Katie. You just stay put, she growled. Abraham began to see a bit clearer and could make out Katie's face. She had 2 cuts on her face and her lip. Her eyes were brimming with tears and her hair was muddy and matted with blood. Her yellow serpentine eyes were large and scanning his injuries. Katie? Good. You didn't lose your memory, she laughed sarcastically. She looked around to see if anyone was near, and then she leaned down close to Abraham's ear. Thank you, she whispered. What? You saved us. All of us, she whispered. You ran in and ripped down the barrier that Morgan guy set up. If you hadn't done that, he'd have killed us. If I'd really saved us, we wouldn't be looking for our missing friends, Abraham grumbled. If you hadn't saved us, then none of us would be here at all, she growled back. Learn to take a compliment. She then planted a kiss on his forehead and smiled. Tell anyone I did that, I will constrict you until all of your ribs are broken. Understood, Abraham smiled back, blushing. After a few minutes of searching and cleaning debris, Abraham finally managed to climb to his feet. Calypso wasn't pleased, but she knew they needed to find the others. Sarah had been found not far from the road, covered in dirt and pieces of the building. She too was okay, but one of her legs was broken, and she'd suffered a cut below her chest that was bleeding badly. Calypso was working fast to patch it up. Abraham, find some bandages, Calypso cried. I'm okay, Calypso, really, Sarah moaned, wincing in pain. Just be still. We'll fix this, Abraham assured her, running through the remains of what was left of their house. It was just a pile of wood, glass, and stone now. The foundation was still intact, and 3 walls were still standing, but the front of the house was burning and smoldering, and the roof was all but gone. Abraham dug through the trash until he stumbled across some strange and familiar bandages. Tamil! Abraham yanked away the stones to find Tamil's limp hand under the rubble. He grabbed it and pulled and fell back in horror. The only thing that came out was Tamil's arm. Nothing else. Ah! Abraham cried, tears coming to his eyes. Tamil! Where's the rest of you? Abraham, stop crying. Abraham looked down to see Tamil's head sitting by the rocks. His eye was black and his lip bloody, but he was fine otherwise. Just got blown up. We'll sew body back together. How are you? I'm undead, Abraham. Tamil smiled weakly. Broken body fixable. I think the rest is over there. Tamil leaned his head to the west, and Abraham set down his hand to go and find it. Sure enough, torn and tattered, but not gone, was the rest of Tamil's body. I found it when Calypso was done with Sarah. Sarah! Abraham leapt to his feet and began to search the trash again for bandages. He'd completely forgotten about Sarah's condition. After a few minutes of looking, he finally found a small box. As he hurried to Sarah, his thoughts were back to the mangled body of Tamil, the cuts all over Katie, the bruises and burns on Calypso. His family was suffering. The entire night was just a matter of searching for and finding their family and mending wounds. Sarah was back on her feet with some webbing wrapped around her leg like a splint. She was helping Calypso sew Tamil's body back together while Katie was tending to the still unconscious Annie. The little girl had not woken up, despite all of her vitals being okay. For all they knew, she could have been merely asleep. Asher was moving in and around the group searching for any sign of their missing leader, Michelle. Dawn was beginning to break. The fires had died down. The club was all sitting around the broken home, though Asher was not with them. He was searching around for Michelle and Solomon.
I can't believe this, Katie muttered. It's horrible, Calypso agreed. How could this have happened? It was that bastard Morgan, Katie shouted. If I ever see him, I'll... Katie, calm down. You're getting too excited. Just relax, Sarah urged. Katie calmed himself again, but didn't stop snarling. And what about Michelle? Calypso whimpered. What if she... No, Sarah shouted. She's okay. She's okay, I swear it. Nothing kill her, Tamil muttered darkly. She too stubborn to be killed that way. I know she okay. She need be okay. Tamil was merely staring blankly ahead, unable to see any of the destruction, but it was clear he felt it. Sorry. Can't lose family member again, just can't. All of them had just lost the one place they called home. Thanks to the hands of radical monster haters, to the hands of a human, and this fact only struck Abraham even harder. One of his kind had done this. Abraham clenched his teeth and his fist tightly. Abraham? Sarah looked over at him, sitting on the boulder near them. Are you all right? A human did this. A human like me. Abraham, I know what you're thinking, but Morgan and you are nothing alike, Sarah said. Just because you're both humans doesn't mean that all humans are like him. Her words were little comfort to the pain in Abraham's heart. It was little wonder why the club feared humans like they did. It was no surprise now as to why Katie had hated Abraham so much when they first met. He was just a human, another bigot, another hateful creature. This isn't your fault. Everyone looked down at Annie, who was just now beginning to stir. Her eyes were half closed and she looked so sleepy. Her voice was hoarse and she was speaking loudly as if her ears were ringing and couldn't hear well. It's not. Don't blame yourself. But he was a human like me. He nearly killed us all. And his hate nearly destroyed everything we have. Yes, and he would have done it too if you hadn't broken the barrier, Sarah argued. Humans can cause destruction, but they can do good too. We can't let the actions of one dictate our opinions of the whole. That voice. Suddenly they heard another voice. A voice that was soft. Further away. It couldn't be. They all spun around at the sound and looked to see Solomon. It was indeed their ghostly friend, but his body was different. Like a television screen that was struggling to find a connection, his figure kept glitching and shaking out of vision. His eyes were filled with the saddest tears, but his smile was the most genuine happiness they'd ever seen. Everyone leapt up and hurried to him, though Annie stayed back, not sure who this was. Solomon! You're okay! Everyone cried. Well, not entirely. Everyone paused and stared at Solomon as he shook his head. My connection to this house was all I had left, and I can feel my spirit slipping away from here. I don't have long. No, Katie snapped. No, you can't go. You're like our father. You gave us this home. We'll rebuild it. You'll be all right.
I'm afraid it's not that simple, dear, Solomon muttered. Using new parts to fix this house will not bring me back because I'm tied to what it was. But don't be upset. I'm so happy for all of you. I was lucky to know you for this part of my afterlife. Now I can rest in peace. I can move on.
Solomon, don't say that,
Sarah cried, hot tears rolling from her bloody cheeks. Tamiel wasn't even facing them anymore, but only staring at the ground, unable to handle the sounds he was hearing.
Please stop. You've got to stay.
Normally, I would be worried, he laughed, though his laugh sounded more like a cough. I wouldn't be worried for you all, without me around to keep you in line, but I'm not. Not anymore. I'm proud of you. All of you. You've all grown up, and you don't fear humans the way you did, and I believe I owe that to you, Abraham. He turned his eyes on Abraham, who was trying hard to fight the tears of guilt and depression. He bit his lip and choked back his frustration, trembling like a leaf in a storm. I didn't do anything, Abraham sniffed. You gave them hope, Abraham. You made them believe that they could exist in a human world. You did more than anything I ever could have. And for that, I thank you, Abraham. He then looked to Annie and smiled. And is this a new friend? Annie stepped forward, holding her torn-up black stuffed cat in her fingers near her lip, as if she wanted to suck her thumb.
I'm so young, but everyone call me Annie. I'm a witch.
A witch? Solomon asked, his body glitching again, but his smile seemed to last through it. Well, Annie, welcome to this sad but still solid little family. From out of the bushes behind them, there was a sound of rustling and thrashing. They turned, and out came Asher, holding Michelle in his arms. She was bloody, bruised, and her hair was soaked in mud. Asher was grimacing as he walked her back to the group. Is she? She's alive, Asher growled. But she was on the verge of death. Her breathing couldn't be any weaker. Asher? Michelle whispered, trying hard to sit up. Stop, you're bloody a mess. Stay still, Asher ordered. Michelle, stubborn as ever, ignored him and tried to look through the bloody bruise that was her eye and saw Solomon.
Is everyone accounted for?
Michelle asked.
Yes, we're all here,
Calypso cried, dropping down beside Michelle to treat her.
Just don't talk right now. You'll be okay. You'll be...
She broke down. She threw her arms around Michelle and cried desperately. Michelle winced in pain but didn't stop her. Abraham felt a slight relief knowing Michelle wasn't dead, but there was a loud cough and a shudder of cold air as Solomon once again began to disappear. Old man! Asher ran forward, but Solomon held up his hand to stop him. It's time. I'm so proud of all of you. I have no regrets. He smiled widely and his body began to blur, and soon it was becoming hard to see him at all. Rebuild, children. Rebuild this club. Don't let our family die. Abraham made a movement as if to grab his hand, just to touch that lifeless, transparent hand. But just as he came close, it was gone. The chill of the air that Solomon carried anywhere he went was missing from the world, and not one person breathed a word. The rising sun and the chirping birds sat on the tone of bitter tears that rolled down everyone's faces. Asher had to turn away as he slammed his fist into a nearby tree, leaving a large dent shaped like a fist. Michelle trembled on the ground, tears mixing with the blood on her cheeks, so it seemed she was crying tears of red blood. Katie slithered away to be alone, mourning his loss, while Tamiel cried pathetically in the corner. The closest thing to a father he or any of them had was now gone, and he felt like he was in the dark once more. The light he'd been holding on to had been snuffed. Sarah held Annie close as the two cried together, while Annie did not cry as loudly or as passionately. Her tears were no less real. Abraham, though, merely stared where Solomon had been moments before, as if expecting him to reappear and reassure them that everything was okay, that he was going to come right back, that his smiling face would welcome them home once again and make it all a bad dream, make it all some horrible nightmare. Solomon was gone. There was no changing that. We won't, Abraham whispered. I won't let it die. And that was chapter 30. Since we're running low on time, let's go ahead and jump right into the next one. Monster Club Chapter 31, August 13th, 2015.
Well, we can't just up and leave,
Katie cried, and we can't stay here either, Asher argued. The two had been arguing for about 20 or 30 minutes now. Solomon was long gone, and everyone was still feeling the pain of his passing. The sun was out now, and the clouds left a shade overhead that made things feel even more gloomy. The club all sat around the range of their home. They were divided now about what to do. Do they stay, or do they go?
This is our home, Asher, Katie argued.
What home? Asher snapped. You mean this pile of rock and wood?
We can rebuild it.
With what tools and what supplies? Asher asked, motioning to the land around them.
We'll get the tools and the supplies, Katie begged. We'll go and...
And what, Katie? We don't have jobs. We don't go to school. We don't own anything. We're monsters. Stop it, Michelle growled. Her voice was low and furious like a growling dog as she shoved Katie and Asher apart.
Do you hear what you're saying, Asher? We're not monsters. We built this club to prove to the world we aren't monsters, so watch your mouth.
Asher stepped back and grumbled. Yeah. Sorry about that.
Now, as for whether we stay or go, Michelle spoke up, causing all to turn and listen. I understand both points. Katie is right. This is our house. It's where we all came together and where we all belong. But Asher is right, too. We can't use this place anymore as a house. It's too destroyed, and it will take supplies and equipment that we simply don't have to rebuild it. Then what do you propose we do then? Sarah asked. We'll leave here, Michelle announced. We'll go and stay somewhere else, but we will come back and rebuild this place. We'll do something. We'll find a contractor if we have to, but I don't want to just abandon this place.
No one spoke, but a silent nod went up from the club. Everyone agreed. There was no disagreements or any misgivings, and if there were any, they were not heard or spoken.
So what now, Michelle?
Calypso whispered, not lifting her head up to gaze upon the stubborn glare that Michelle was giving them all.
Pack what you can and gather what little personal belongings you have left. We'll leave in an hour.
It didn't take long to pack, because there was little left to scavenge or find. Most of their belongings were still on that bus that they'd come in from their trip to the beach. However, despite being packed in less than half an hour, no one was ready to leave. Each of the club merely stared and walked around as if caught in a trance. Asher walked in and out of the rubble, grumbling and baring his fangs, mumbling about being too slow or too weak and pathetic. Michelle had no words, and while her eyes shed no tears, pain was etched upon her face like chalk on a board. Her hair was a mess, and more than once she would stop and rub her eyes. Was she trying to wake up from a nightmare she was still having? Calypso stood at the shoreline of the lake and watched the water fill with debris and trash from the explosion. It was dark and murky, and her hair kept blowing against her shoulders and neck. Ripples from teardrops stained the dirt as her feet kept hitting the water like rain. Tamil, though, he never stopped walking. He moved around the edge of where the house once was with his arms outstretched as if longing to clutch the walls that stood there before. A sense of familiarity or understanding. When he could find something, his face would light up and he would feel that hunk of wall or furniture until he couldn't touch it anymore. And when he found the destroyed and broken pieces, his face would sink like a stone in water. The home he knew was gone. Sarah was not near the house. Rather, she built up a small web near the woods on the west side of the destruction. It was high off the ground as she looked out at the land around her. The light patches of smoke that rose up were like eels rising from the earth and reaching to the sky. She would look at them, then to the sky, and then hide her face again. Katie merely coiled under a tree, hugging herself in agony. She coughed several times, but it was not from smoke or suffocation. She'd just been crying too much. This house. Abraham looked down at Annie, who was sitting in his lap. He hadn't moved from the steps of the brick that once led up to the front door of the house. Annie had been hugging her stuffed cat to her chest and stared off into space for a long time.
It meant a lot to you, huh?
Annie asked. Yeah, Abraham sighed. They're all just trying to cope.
You're not crying like them, though. Did you not like this house?
She asked. It's not that, Annie, Abraham replied, placing a hand on her head. I love this house, and everyone else in it, but I guess this is just something I'm used to. Hold on, guys. Get a drink.
Used to?
Losing homes, I mean, Abraham answered. I've gone from home to home, family to family, and each time it's the same. Bad luck follows me like my own shadow. It just sticks to my feet. Now I've ruined the only really amazing family I've ever had. Annie just looked up at Abraham, and she saw that while he wasn't bawling his eyes out, the way his eyes brimmed over with tears was nothing short of agonizing.
I kind of get it, Annie responded. I moved from home to home, too. No one wants me around.
Well, we want you around, Abraham assured her.
I promise. No promise, Annie growled. Promises hurt.
Abraham didn't know how to respond to that. He merely sat with her rubbing her head.
Guys,
Michelle spoke up. It's time to go. Everyone dragged their feet as they moved to the bus. It was their only means of transportation at this point to go anywhere. The gang packed up and they all got on board as Abraham took the driver's seat again. Want to get on the interstate? Abraham asked.
No, we stole this bus, so it's likely that it's being searched for. We'll stick to the highways and off-road maps for the time being, Michelle told him.
Abraham agreed and fired up the bus. The gang remained silent for a long time as the bus drove down the street.
Before we get too far, let's stop at a grocery store for some supplies.
The store is almost closed. The store is likely closed, though, Asher argued.
Yeah, but Abby usually does lock up. She might be willing to let us slip inside if she understands the circumstances. Abby? Annie asked. A friend of ours who works at the store, Calypso spoke up. I hope she's there. I'd rather not have to pull any more stunts tonight. Guys, Abby has never met the likes of us before, Katie argued. She's fine around you normal-looking members of the club like Abraham and Michelle, but what about when she gets a load of me and Sarah?
The group all looked at each other with worried expressions of concern. This was certainly a true fear that Katie had brought to light. Abby certainly wouldn't help any of them if she thought they were monsters.
Well, we'll make it work, Michelle responded. Sure, she's never met you, but that doesn't mean too much considering that she knows us.
As they drew closer to the grocery store, Michelle put her hand on Abraham's shoulder, squeezing it encouragingly.
Park on the side of the road here. We'll go the rest of the way on foot.
With a nod, Abraham parked the bus and opened the doors. Michelle stepped off the first and was followed by Asher. Who else wants to come? Asher called.
I'll come, Sarah replied, hurrying off the bus. I meet Abby too, Annie called, running down the doorway.
Well, in that case, I better come along to keep an eye on Annie, Abraham offered.
Gosh, what are you, her big brother? Michelle teased.
Shut it, Abraham laughed. All right, this group is big enough, Asher called. The rest of you will wait here and stay out of sight. Michelle climbed down too, and the entire group nodded as they walked out to the parking lot. Michelle shot a cautious look up at the moon. It was only a crescent moon, not a full one. Calm down, Asher whispered. The full moon isn't for a few weeks. Why so jumpy?
I don't know. I just have a bad feeling, Michelle replied. Like something is going very wrong.
It seems to happen to us a lot, Asher snarled.
Hey guys, stop being so negative. Look on the bright side, Sarah offered, giving a small smile.
Asher turned and gave her a cold stare. It wasn't angry, it was just very matter of fact. Sarah, after losing Solomon, I'm not sure if there's even a bright side at this point. Sarah wanted to answer him, but thought better of it and just hung her head a little. She said nothing and followed in silence. Abraham smiled kindly and touched Sarah's hand gently, causing her to turn and face him. Hey, let's keep our chin up, right, Sarah? Things just look bad now, right? We'll bring them all around. Abraham whispered encouragingly. Abraham couldn't stand to see her like this. Sarah was the heart of the club, the happiness. No matter how bad things got, Sarah was always there to brighten everyone up. If she brought everything down, then the club would surely start to feel the depression even longer. If Abraham was to keep his promise and hold the club together, he had to make sure that didn't happen. Annie was holding his hand and smiling up at Sarah, too.
Everything gonna be fine, Annie smiled.
Not necessarily. Abraham suddenly stopped to look at Asher, glaring at the store. Something's wrong, Asher whispered. The store is closed, but I sense something nearby.
The Dawnbringers? Sarah gasped. Drake?
Annie cried. No. I'm going to look around. You all stay put. Asher took off into the store to find the source of the problem, while Abraham remained beside Annie and Sarah.
What do you suppose Asher senses? Sarah asked. I don't know, Michelle growled, glancing back at them. But I don't think Asher's wrong here. I smell something, too. Funny, though. It smells almost like a bear. A bear? Annie asked. You know what a bear is, right? Sarah laughed, leaning down towards Annie. It's a really big, hairy animal. Yes, I know, Annie pouted. I just not know there were any here. Well, there shouldn't be, Michelle muttered.
Michelle, look out! Abraham cried. No sooner had he screamed this than Michelle turned to see a hulking monster rushing towards her and Sarah. The bear was enormous, easily twice her height and 3 times her weight. With dark brown fur like a grizzly, the beast roared furiously and swung down with its massive paw to crush Michelle. Michelle leapt aside just in time as Abraham grabbed Annie and yanked her out of harm's way. The bear didn't seem interested in them, however, and turned once more towards Michelle. What the hell? Michelle roared. Why's a bear here? Get out of there, Abraham shouted. Asher, come back here! Michelle pulled herself together and readied herself, snarling at the bear as it reared up at her. My saw, the bear muttered. The entire group all froze in shock. The bear had spoken. It spoke with a low and furious growling voice, but it had spoken. It roared again and slammed its body into the stunned Michelle.
You can talk? You're no ordinary Yogi Bear, are you?
Michelle snapped, kicking the bear away from her with her immense strength. As the bear rolled away from her, it began to shrink and lose its fur. It took on a more human appearance, as if merely shedding skin, until what stood in its place was a young man wearing a coat and torn jeans. He had long, dark brown hair like the bear had, and his eyes were the same vicious, cold blue color. His teeth were bared, and his fingers and nails sharp like claws. His skin was dark tan, and his face was chiseled to make him look almost like an Indian. Who was this stranger who could somehow become a bear?
So that's it, a skinwalker, Sarah cried.
A skin what? Abraham asked.
Navajo legend. A skinwalker, someone who can transform themselves into an animal, kind of like Michelle, but they can do it whenever they want to.
Die! He roared, running for Michelle again. Michelle readied herself to fight. Abraham watched the two clash and felt his heart tear in two. He was watching it happen again. It was going to happen all over again. He was watching one of his friends fight for their very lives. His family was fighting, and he could only stand back and watch. I'm going to help her, Abraham shouted.
I'm coming too, Sarah
hissed, taking Abraham's hand and pulling him with her. Annie ran alongside them.
I don't know what to do, but I'll do it,
Annie screamed. Her passion was there, even if she was a little lost. Abraham didn't know what he could do either. Without Asher and Michelle's wolf form, what chance did they have against a skinwalker, whatever that was? It didn't matter. He didn't know why this bear boy wanted to kill Michelle, and he didn't care if they even knew each other. But there was one thing he knew beyond a shadow of a doubt. He had to fight. He couldn't watch another member of his family die. Not here, not this time. He would hold this club together, no matter what. And that was chapter 31. All right, and as usual, guys, I will give you guys the option for me to read one more chapter tonight of whichever of the stories you want. So I will set up the poll. The only thing it can't be is the Tale of Tomaki, just because I need to finish editing that. So it can be Tempest Blade, Monster Club, or Shogun of Crime. Daniel, if you're still here, you might get one more Shogun of Crime if that's what they vote for. Give you all a few minutes. Yeah, you can share them, Atla. That's fine. All right. I think we can go ahead and end the poll there. Everyone who's voted is going to, I think. Out of 17 votes, 52% say Monster Club, 29% say Tempest Blade, 17% say Shogun of Crime. All right, well, that's pretty definitive. We will do the next chapter of Monster Club. That puts us on chapter 32. Let me close out the Tale of Tomaki, close out the Tempest Blade, close out Shogun of Crime. There we go. And I will put a new image on the screen. Of course, it is assuming I can get to it. Because you never can know sometimes. There we go. I'll use this picture, because we're about to introduce 3 new characters. let's go ahead and get this thing started. Oh, and in case you're wondering, yes, that gentleman in the far right-hand corner, that is the Skinwalker. All right, let's get started. Chapter 32, written August 31st, 2015. Stop! Abraham, Sarah, and Annie were all thrown back by a tremendous force, knocking them away with ease. Abraham managed to see a swarm of bats burst from around the corner of the store and crash into the bear boy. With a horrified roar, the Skinwalker began attempting to swat at the bats, but he might as well have tried to strike down and missed. The boy leapt back, and the bats reformed to create an incredibly pissed-off Asher. Nightwalker, the boy hissed. A vampire? Who the hell are you? Asher snarled. To Abraham's shock, the Skinwalker didn't seem intimidated by Asher. In fact, he just smirked. Seems the wolf has befriended a bat, he muttered. Tell me who the hell you are, Asher roared, pulling his gun, or I'll put 2 silver bullets in your chest. This time the Skinwalker flinched and glared at the gun. How do you have silver bullets? He demanded. You're bluffing. You want to take that bet? Go ahead. Just know I won't miss, Asher snarled. Abraham looked to Sarah in confusion. Why would silver bullets make a difference? Sarah noticed his look and frowned. Skinwalkers are cousins to werewolves. They can't be killed by anything other than silver, Sarah explained. After a few moments of standing still and staring each other down, the Skinwalker boy lowered into a crouching stance as if to launch himself at Asher. He was going to call the bluff. The action was about to get heated again, and there was nothing any of them could do. Asher and their bear were about to fight at full power. Mato, stop it! What the hell? A figure let down from the top of the store. She was short, but her appearance was clearly that of a female, except there was a key characteristic that threw them off. From her shoulders sprouted 2 enormous wings that were brown and white like a hawk. Her wild hair was feathery and the exact same color. Not only that, but her legs were yellow, scaled, and like talons. A harpy? Michelle gasped. I've never seen a real one before. The harpy stopped between Ash and the Skinwalker and rounded on him. Mata, what the hell is wrong with you? She shouted. Shut up, Tori, Mato growled. This doesn't concern you. We were just here to find food and you suddenly act all pissed off and take off running, she snapped, and you call me a bird brain. It's a territorial thing, Mato grumbled, blushing a bit, as if her words were making him realize just how foolish he'd been. All right, I've had enough. All eyes turned from Tori and Mato to Michelle, who had stepped forward with her hands on her hips and a scowl on her face. I, for one, want answers here. Why was I attacked? Who the hell are you two, and what are you doing here? Mato glared a moment, but then his hands went to his pockets and looked away. Tori rolled her eyes, and it was in that moment that Abraham took notice of her deep yellow eyes. They really were just like a hawk. My name's Tori, and this is Mato, she answered. We had come here to get food for our little group when suddenly Nature Boy here went off the deep end. Bear instincts, he muttered. I smelled the presence of a wolf, and my instinct to defend my territory kicked in, Mato growled. Abraham guessed that was as close to a real apology as they were going to get. But that doesn't matter too much to Michelle, whose eyes went wide at the prospect of their group. You said you have a group, Michelle asked. You mean other non-humans, so you're like us? Like you, Mato asked. Wait, so you really are all in a group? You and the vampire? Us too, Abraham shouted. Mato turned and seemed to suddenly notice Abraham, Sarah, and Annie. Sarah gave a friendly wave, and Annie hid a little behind Abraham's legs, not sure whether she wanted to run or not. We call ourselves the Monster Club, Sarah explained. There are others. There's a mummy named Tamila. Sarah! Michelle barked, silencing her. Sarah fell silent and nodded. It seemed Michelle didn't want these strangers knowing more than they already did. Tori was grinning and hanging on every word, but Mato hadn't taken his glaring eyes off of Abraham. You're a human, he noted. Yes, I am, Abraham replied. I'm Abraham. Nice to meet you. Mato spat and made an aggressive snarl towards him, making Asher step between him and Abraham. Back off, Asher growled. You're defending it? Mato hissed. What the hell's wrong with you? Abraham is part of our family, Sarah said defensively, wrapping her arms around Abraham from behind, making Abraham blush slightly. Annie nodded her agreement but didn't come out from hiding. And what about the little one? Mato demanded. Is she human? She's a witch, Abraham answered. Mato's sneer only grew more menacing. Are you all fools? You sheltered witches and humans? Don't you know what their kind does to us? Mato, please. Tori stepped forward and placed a hand on his shoulder as if to comfort him, but Mato shrugged her off and shook his head. Fools. All a pack of fools. He growled, storming away, leaving Tori behind with the bewildered and pissed off Monster Club. I'm sorry about that, Tori muttered. Mato can be a bit of a bastard, Asher offered. Jerk, Michelle sighed. Meanie, Annie questioned. Yeah, all of those, Tori realized. But that being said, I can't help but understand where he's coming from. Why did you have a human and a witch with you?
Why should we discriminate against anyone just because of what they are? Michelle asked, stepping up to take charge of the situation. That makes us no different than the ones who persecute us. But... Tori blinked a few times as if trying to think her way around that logic. She shook her head a few times. I mean, I can kind of respect that, but it's Mato and Naomi. Tori, Mato shouted, we need to get moving. Hold on, Mato, just a second, she shouted back. She then turned back to the monster club and kicked her talons in the dirt a bit as if she was trying to think of the right thing to say. Look, regardless of what we agree or disagree on, what Mato did was wrong, and I want to make it up to you, Tori said. Is there anything I can do? I think we'll be fine, Asher growled, clearly not wanting anything more to do with the two of them. Actually, Abraham spoke up, stepping forward, would you know of any good places for us to stay? Our house was destroyed on the other night, and we're without a home. You're what? Tori cried. Oh my gosh, that's horrible. What happened? We'd rather not talk about it, Michelle grumbled. Well, I think we can let you stay with us, at least for a night, Tori offered. If you want, you can follow us to our home. I don't know about that, Michelle said. I don't think Smiley over there will be too on board with the idea. Oh, Mato? Tori asked. Well, no, he probably won't like it, you're right. But he's the one you should worry about. He's not the one you should worry about. Naomi's the leader. She'll have to decide. But I'll bet she'll be nice and let you stay. She's not quite as mean as Mato. Asher and Michelle exchanged looks as if wondering what to do. There was no question that they had nowhere else to stay and they needed shelter. It would suck to keep scaring people out of gas stations and camping in the bus. If they could find a home, even if just for a while, it would help Grace greatly. Fine, how far is it to this place? Asher asked. Do you have means of travel? If you use that, I'll fly and you can just follow me, Tori giggled. Just try not to fall too far behind. I'm the fastest flyer you'll ever see, she winked. Well, at least we know you're real humble about it, Asher muttered. Asher and Michelle escorted Sarah, Annie, and Abraham back to the bus while Tori followed close behind to see where their bus was. Mato had elected to go ahead and meet them at the location, after giving Tori a few criticisms and hateful remarks for inviting them to stay at their hideout at all. When they refound the bus, Tori stopped and folded her arms. So who's driving this thing? She asked. Me, Abraham answered. She looked back at him and then pointed to the moon overhead. I'll be flying ahead of you. Try to keep an eye on me against the backdrop of the moon, all right? Abraham nodded back and then had an idea. Hey, Tamil, we got any flashlights in the bag? Oh, yes, I see them right here, he answered sarcastically. Abraham flushed, forgetting for a moment that Tamil was blind. Right. Sorry, you wouldn't know. We do. Katie slithered over to Abraham and handed him a long black flashlight, which he gave to Tori. Keep this on, and that way I have a way to spot you if I lose sight of you, Abraham said. Huh, not a bad idea. You're pretty sharp for a human, Tori smirked. Abraham grimaced at this and crossed his arms. Tori quickly squeaked and blushed. No offense. No, I'm offended. Not all humans are dumb primates, Abraham grumbled. Please don't talk to me like that again. Tori nodded a bit embarrassed and frowned. Right. Sure. You got it. Just follow me. Tori extended her wings and took to the sky, darting off towards the east. Abraham fired at the bus and followed them, mentally wondering if this was really worth it. It was clear that Mato had a serious prejudice against humans, not unlike Michelle and Katie had back when he first met them. But he felt so much animosity from Mato that it made him literally afraid of him. Tori seemed a bit nicer, but she too showed that same sense of superiority to humans, and thus he was feeling like even more of an outcast. You okay, Abraham? Michelle asked. We don't have to do this. No, it's fine. Let's go, or we'll lose her, Abraham whispered. Following Tori wasn't too difficult, mostly because she enjoyed showing off. Every mile or so, she'd slow down and do a few flips and spins in the air, even doing a fierce dive for the bus and then veering up the last minute. Asher was not shy about snarling each time she did this. What is this, a circus performance? He growled. I think it's cool, Sarah giggled. I wish I could fly like that. I think that's the whole reason she's showing off, Michelle. I think that's the whole reason she's showing off, Sarah, Michelle grumbled. Because she knows we can't. Yeah, humility isn't really her thing, is it? Katie snickered. But despite this, the group continued to follow until at last they came to a very dark and very empty-feeling town. There was a huge garage building that said Barron's Tire Distributors. A tire warehouse? Abraham asked. Makes sense, Michelle noted. It's large enough to hold a lot of people and run down enough that most people who don't have business there won't come knocking. Looks like this place hasn't been used in a while. Abraham pulled up to the warehouse and parked near one of the 5 garage door entrances. Tori landed next to the bus and ran up to meet them. Welcome to our humble abode. Did y'all enjoy the show? What show? Tamil asked. The spectacular demonstration I put on, of course, Tori said proudly. Sorry, must have missed it, Tamil smirked. Tori looked positively bewildered. But come on, I was... Tori, Tamil is blind, Calypso giggled, patting Tamil's shoulder. He's teasing you. Tori blushed and shoved Tamil. You big jerk! You really had me going there, she laughed. But you guys who can see enjoyed it, right? Tori looked to the others, and they all politely nodded as she gave a bow. Thank you, thank you.
I thought it was cool, Abraham admitted. Tori smiled at him and spread her wings. Always nice to have an audience. Tori, stop showboating and bring the guests inside already. Everyone turned to see Mato standing by one of the garage entrances. I swear you do this every time you put on a performance. Aw, but you and Naomi have seen all my tricks before. You guys never even pay attention anymore. You're no fun, Tori pouted. After the 10th time, it gets a bit old, bird brain, Mato chuckled. His laugh sounded so deep and heartfelt that Abraham almost forgot that he was the same person who tried to kill them not too long ago. He'd been so hateful and rude. Was he really that same person? He then turned to Asher and the others. Naomi's inside cooking. You can come in and see her now if you want. Everyone hurried inside to get out of the cold night air and get inside. But as Abraham made his way to the door, Mato suddenly held out a hand to him, giving him a venomous look. What? Abraham asked. Listen, human. My name's Abraham. Abraham snapped back. Mato ignored him. I don't trust you, and I don't know you. I'm not letting you stay here because Tori's too naive to realize how dangerous humans really are. You pull anything to hurt her or Naomi, I will tear you apart. I don't care what that werewolf or vampire say. You're a human, and humans can't be trusted, he growled. Then I'll make it my personal mission to prove you wrong, Abraham said proudly. Mato gave a laugh and walked inside. We'll see, won't we? Abraham walked in to see everyone gathered around as another person was in the far corner near a sink with a giant pot of some kind. She had a dreidel and was stirring the contents of the pot. Her skin was a dark navy blue and her hair was short and black. She was humming to herself, but then paused as she heard the chatter behind her. Come on in, make yourselves at home, she said. Mato told me we'd be getting some guests. Well, we don't have much, but we do have stew and space, so you can stay for a bit if you need to. Thank you for your hospitality, Michelle said. It's the least I can do, the woman chuckled. She still had not turned around to look at them, but was instead focusing on the stew. I heard from Mato that you're a band of misfit monsters. Well, I guess we can relate to that in this regard, although I hear quite a lot of you. How many am I serving tonight? She turned around to look at them. Her deep, dark eyes were like the depths of the ocean. They were so strange and mysterious, and she wore a mischievous grin on her face that made Abraham feel wary. She also had fins for ears, hiding a mischievous grin on her face. She had fins for ears hiding behind her hair that looked very similar. She scanned them all with her eyes, but then her face went from amusement to shock. She squealed and stumbled backwards, placing a hand over her heart. Calypso! Is that you? She cried. And that is chapter 32. And I think we'll stop there. All right, well, with all that out of the way, I did enjoy tonight. I hope you guys did too. I'll go ahead and take this down. There we go. All right, well, I hope that this was an enjoyable night of reading. I'm glad that we got Daniel to finally come in and listen. And thank you all for coming. Now, let me go ahead and let you all know something right now. Next week, I start my training for management. I don't know how busy I'll be. I don't know what my schedule will look like yet. It's going to be revealed to me on Friday. So I really hope that I get to read for you guys next Monday. If not, we'll pick another time. Okay? I shouldn't be busy all week, so I should have some time. Anyway, thank you guys so much. And as always, I will see you guys in my next video. Take care.